You're listening to Marked by Snow, a dark snow-white retelling, written by D.N. Leo and narrated by Jessica Lee. Every story on this channel is crafted exclusively by D.N. Leo, inspired by your requests and dreams. If you love heart-pounding shifter romance with found family, 7 magical pets who give hilariously terrible advice, and fierce heroines who claim themselves before choosing their mate, this story was written for you. Before we begin, hit that like button if you're ready for a Snow White who doesn't need saving, and subscribe to never miss our next dark fairy tale. Have a story burning in your heart? A favorite trope you're craving? A fairy tale begging to be reimagined? Drop your request in the link below. You dream it. I write it. Together, we're building a universe where every story gets its perfect ending. Now close your eyes, take a deep breath, and let's discover what happens when Snow White refuses to wait for true love's kiss. Chapter 1. Beatrice held the vial of shimmering purple liquid up to the light, watching it swirl like captured starlight. The last rays of sunset painted amber streaks across her lab walls, while outside, the small town of Wolf Valley settled into its evening rhythm. Car doors slamming as families returned home, the distant laughter of children, the first crickets beginning their twilight symphony. One drop too much foxglove essence, and this protection potion would become a transformation disaster. Again. Careful with that, a gravelly voice warned from the corner. Last time you experimented, I couldn't stop hiccuping sparkles for a week. She glanced at Grumpy, the badger who'd taken up permanent residence in her lab at Super Pets Academy. His black and white striped face wore its perpetual scowl. That was a mild side effect. You looked festive. Festive. He spat the word like a curse. I'm a badger, not a disco ball. Beatrice carefully sealed the vial and placed it in the locked cabinet beside 17 other failed attempts. The old hinges creaked softly, a familiar sound that usually soothed her. Not tonight. Her fingers trembled slightly, not from the potion work, but from anticipation. Tonight. After 3 years, tonight Lucienne would finally pop the question. It wasn't an assumption or an experiment like her potion work, which tended to go wrong. It was a matter of hearts. She knew him. They were soulmates. And tonight, he was going to make it official. You're better off forgetting this potion-making experiment and focusing on what's important here, Happy announced, tail wagging so hard his golden retriever body shook. Just say yes already. Marry the wolf, run this place together, make some puppies, why, human ones, or wolf ones, whatever you two end up making. Thank you for that disturbing visual, Beatrice muttered, checking her reflection in the cabinet's glass door. Look, the potion work is important for the Coven and the Wolf Valley pack, but I promise you I won't be making any more of the animal whispering potion, so the 7 of you will be the only animals that can talk. How does that sound? Happy made a sound that was very much like a giggle. We didn't ask for exclusivity. A tiny yawn drew her attention to the bookshelf. You just did, Happy. Beatrice has enough to worry about right now. Leave her alone. Sleepy's voice was drowsy but firm. We'll be here for you, Beatrice. Go have fun with your man. We'll serve your family, you, your mate, and however many little ones you produce. She smiled at Sleepy, the tawny owl whose perpetually drooping eyelids made him look eternally ready for a nap. His head was already tucking under his wing. Thank you, Sleepy. You missed a spot with your mascara, Doc said, preening his black feathers. The raven's obsidian eyes missed nothing. Where? Beatrice leaned closer to the glass. Bashful, the red fox peeked out from under her desk. Left eye, outer corner, he whispered, then immediately ducked back into hiding. Her phone buzzed with an incoming video call. Beatrice swiped to answer, and her 2 best friends filled the screen. Show us the dress, and make sure you test the hidden pockets and the concealed weapons I gave you, Jasmine demanded, her stunning features perfectly framed by waves of dark hair. Even through the phone, she radiated the dangerous elegance that made vampires think twice about visiting Wolf Valley. Jasmine used to be an agent in the supernatural law enforcement, specializing in vampire hunting. She had retired for years, but never lost her touch. "Jasmine, I'm going out on a dinner date with Lucian, not heading into war. Plus, he's literally the biggest wolf in the region." Mia chuckled. "That's the problem with my dear cousin Beatrice. His heart is too big. Remember last time he let a wombat bite him because he didn't want to shift and scare it? Said the poor thing might fall off its own burrow from fright?" Beatrice laughed, warmth flooding through her at the memory of Lucien's giant, gentle heart, the kind and passionate heart of an artist. "Yes, I remember, and I love him for that." "Turn around," Mia added, her analytical gaze missing nothing. "And why do you look tired? Did you sleep at all last night?" Beatrice spun obligingly, showing off her silver dress, earning a whistle from Jasmine. "I was working on protection potions. Just in case of any objections from the pack." "You've got nothing to worry about, Beatrice," Mia interrupted, her voice firm. "I'm the alpha, remember? My pack doesn't discriminate when it comes to soulmates, even if I'm not a wolf shifter. Even if after he marks and claims me, I can't. Even that, Beatrice." Mia's eyes hardened with determination. "Look, the entire pack knows you've been in love with Lucien for decades, since you were both little kids, and he shared his sandwich with you." "It was a really good sandwich," Beatrice defended, face warming. "And it hasn't been decades of being in love, just years of knowing he was special." "Sure." Jasmine's eye roll was audible. "That's why you learned to bake his favorite cookies, took business classes to help with his gallery and arts business, and literally moved your pet school closer to his house. Girl, you would catwalk in the most cutthroat fashion parade if that helped promote his arts." I know. But you're still worried." Mia chuckled, but her expression softened. "Okay, here's some intel for you. Ready for this?" Beatrice nodded, gripping the phone tighter. "He spent 2 hours at my place last night." 2 hours, Beatrice, going through every possible scenario." "What kind of scenarios?" Beatrice's voice came out smaller than intended. "The possibility of officially having you as his mate without marking or claiming you. Whether there's precedent, whether the pack would accept it, whether you would accept it." Mia paused. "He loves you too much to force any change if he thinks there's even a tiny risk it could hurt you. I swear, he actually asked if you'd still love him if you turned into a rabbit by accident." Beatrice's throat tightened with emotion. "That's why we've been dating for ages, and he's just not." "Popping the question yet?" Jasmine finished, her smile knowing. "Honey, that man is more nervous than you are." Mia nodded. "Exactly. A proposal is equivalent to a claim for shifters, and it's huge, so now you know. He's just as worried as you are. He wants to claim you as his mate, but he's terrified of the actual marking part." The doorbell rang, its cheerful chime at odds with her suddenly racing heart. "He's early, way too early," her voice pitched higher. "That's not like Lucian," Mia noted, her alpha instincts sharpening visibly. "He's compulsively punctual, never early." "Maybe he's nervous too," Jasmine suggested, then grinned. "Now go. Can you leave the camera on? Pretty please?" "Not a chance, Jasmine." She air-kissed her friends and hung up, their protests cut short. She smoothed her dress, took a deep breath that did nothing for her racing pulse, and yanked open the door. "Lucian, you're—" The words died in her throat. The man standing on her doorstep wasn't Lucian. He was tall, with white blonde hair that caught the setting sun like spun platinum. His bone structure belonged on a magazine cover, sharp jaw, aristocratic nose, eyes the pale blue of winter ice. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her monthly mortgage, and he held himself with the kind of stillness that screamed predator. "My name is Troy Silverstone, heir to the White Wolf Pack." He paused, those arctic eyes studying her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "I'm here to discuss the mark I placed on you during the storm last month." Chapter 2. The door clicked shut behind Troy Silverstone with the finality of a coffin lid. Beatrice stood frozen for exactly 3 seconds before her body caught up with her brain. "Oh no, 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 no!" She sprinted back to her lab, nearly tripping over Grumpy, who'd positioned himself in the doorway like a striped roadblock. Her hands shook as she grabbed her phone, dropping it twice before managing to hit Mia's contact. The glass screen was slick with her sudden cold sweat. "Put it on speaker," Happy barked, bouncing around her feet. "We need to hear this." "Conference call," Doc cawed from his perch. "Jasmine needs to know, too." Beatrice's fingers flew across the screen. The moment both faces appeared, she word vomited. "Troy Silverstone just showed up and said he marked me during that storm last month, and I'm going to transform at the full moon and become his mate. And what do I do?" Silence. The kind that made her ears ring. Then, "The Troy Silverstone?" Mia's alpha composure cracked like ice under pressure. "Heir to the White Wolf Pack? Is there another one?" Beatrice managed, though her voice still climbed toward hysteria, hitting notes only Happy could properly appreciate. "Beatrice, breathe," Jasmine commanded, her vampire hunter calm kicking in. "Start from the beginning, slowly. Remember that massive storm last month when I was harvesting moonbell herbs for the protection potions?" Beatrice began, pacing her lab in tight circles. "I found a large dog caught in the flooding. I thought it was just a big dog, maybe a husky. I pulled it up from the water and then it just padded away. So I thought it was just a dog." Mia shook her head, dark hair swaying. "No interaction. That's not how marking works. Are you sure?" "Exactly what I thought, or I didn't even think of it." Beatrice's hands fluttered like trapped birds. "It was a massive storm and I saw a drowning dog. Naturally, I saved it. And I am 100% sure I'd know if a dog bit me, let alone a big bloody alpha wolf. Don't you have to declare yourself and your intention when you mark someone? It's not a police officer reading Miranda rights, Beatrice." Jasmine's voice remained steady. That was her gift, being the anchor in any storm. "When I hunted vamps, I went in weapons drawn and usually drew first blood to gain advantage. No announcements. Yes, but I didn't even feel an impact. Look." She pulled up her hair, fingers trembling as she exposed the base of her neck to the camera. There, glowing with an ethereal silver sheen against her skin, was an intricate pattern that looked like frost on a window, beautiful and terrifying. "I marked." The words tasted like ash in her mouth. Her mind went numb with the implications, the future with Lucienne slipping away like water through her fingers. Jasmine's breath hissed between her teeth. "That's definitely a mate mark." "But Lucienne never noticed it," Beatrice protested, her voice breaking. "We make love every second night and he missed another wolf's mark on me?" Mia sighed, the sound heavy with understanding. "Beatrice, Lucienne and I were deadlines." "Former deadlines," Beatrice corrected automatically. "You both shift now." "Yes, thanks to that experimental potion Lucienne bought from the traveling alchemist. But the point is, we learn to shift as adults. We don't have the instincts that natural-born shifters do." Mia's expression was apologetic. "A wolf raised in the pack would have scented that mark immediately. But Lucienne and I, we probably mistook it for herb residue or storm magic. We're still learning." "Oh, God." Beatrice sank onto a stool, her legs suddenly unable to hold her. "What do I do now?" "The Silverstone pack isn't just any pack," Mia continued grimly. "They're old money, old magic, old rules. They own half the territory north of here. Their business empire makes Lucienne's art gallery look like a lemonade stand." "I don't care about their money." "But you should care about their power," Jasmine interjected, her dark eyes serious. "I've had run-ins with their security forces. They're intense, and they don't take rejection well." A peacock suddenly strutted into frame, tail feathers spread in full magnificent display. "Perhaps I could help," Selfie suggested, preening. "I am, after all, an expert in making good impressions." "You weren't invited to this conversation," Grumpy grumbled from his corner. "I invited myself. Now about breaking this news to Lucian." Selfie tilted his iridescent head thoughtfully. "You need what I call a sandwich approach." "A sandwich approach?" Beatrice asked weakly, feeling like she might throw up. "Precisely." The peacock's eyes gleamed with misplaced confidence. "Start with something positive. "Lucienne, darling, you look handsome tonight." Then slide in the meat. "By the way, I've been marked by an alpha wolf from the most dangerous pack in the region, and he wants me as his mate." Then end with another positive. "Have you done something new with your hair?" "That's terrible advice," Doc observed dryly. "Do you have better?" Selfie challenged, ruffling his feathers. "Tell him immediately," the raven said simply. "Rip it off like a bandage." No, ease into it," Bashful whispered from under the desk, only his red tail visible. "Maybe start with, 'Remember that storm.'" "Just bite him back," Happy suggested, tail wagging enthusiastically. "Mark over the mark." "That's not how it works," Mia sighed. "You can't overwrite an alpha's mark unless you're stronger than the original marker. And Troy Silverstone." She shook her head slowly. "His bloodline is pure white wolf. They're basically supernatural royalty. Can we get back to the now problem?" Beatrice's voice cracked like thin ice. "How do I tell Lucian that another wolf has claimed me?" A small rabbit hopped onto the lab table, pink nose twitching rapidly. "Maybe you don't?" Everyone turned to stare at the newest addition to the conversation. "Sneezy," Beatrice said slowly. "What do you mean?" The rabbit's nose twitched faster, whiskers quivering. "Well, what if you just—" He sneezed suddenly, the force of it making everyone jump. "Sorry, what if you just don't tell him and hope it goes away?" "Marks don't just go away," Mia said firmly. "Beatrice, you have to tell him, tonight, before—" The sound of tires on gravel cut through the conversation like a knife. Beatrice's heart stopped, then restarted at double speed. She stood, peeking through the curtain, and her breath caught at the sight of Lucian, her prince, her soulmate, her everything. Nearly 7 feet tall, he moved with the fluid grace of his wolf despite his imposing size. His features were a masterwork, sharp cheekbones softened by full lips that smiled too easily, storm gray eyes that saw beauty in everything, dark hair that fell in waves he constantly pushed back when concentrating on his art. He was an artist, but his body was the art that God created in a moment of cosmic creative enhancement. Broad shoulders tapering to a narrow waist, muscles earned from hauling massive canvases rather than gym vanity. His suit was perfect, as always, charcoal gray tailored to fit like a second skin, a little more formal tonight. He parked his Aston Martin, the one he only drove to important events and exhibitions for top collectors, carefully avoiding her garden bed full of medicinal herbs. But tonight he'd driven the precious car here because this was going to be a precious moment in their lives. Or it was supposed to be. "He's here," Beatrice muttered, her mouth suddenly desert dry. "We're staying on the line," Jasmine declared with the tone that had made vampires surrender. "Absolutely not. Beatrice, I'm hanging up now, wish me luck." She disconnected to a chorus of protests from both human and animal friends. The lab suddenly felt too small, the walls pressing in, the air too thick to breathe properly. Beatrice's heart hammered against her ribs as she watched Lucienne step out of his car, a bouquet of wildflowers in one hand, her favorites, picked not bought, and a familiar bakery box in the other that would contain the lemon tarts he knew she loved. He was whistling off-key, something he only did when he was truly, deeply happy. The mark on her neck pulsed with warmth, as if reminding her of its presence, as if Troy Silverstone was already claiming ownership from afar. Time to break the heart of the man she loved. Chapter 3. The Aston Martin's engine roared to life, a sound Lucienne had never let it make before. The Italian leather steering wheel creaked under his white-knuckled grip, the scent of his own rage mixing with pine air freshener and forgotten turpentine. Troy Silverstone. The name burned in his mind like acid eating through canvas. Lucienne had spent 3 years avoiding pack politics, the territorial pissing contests, the power plays disguised as mating rituals, the archaic traditions that turned love into chess moves. He deliberately kept his distance from all of it, content to paint and love Beatrice in peace. But now that world, the one he despised, had reached out and marked the most important person in his life. His Beatrice. His wildflower, his muse, the woman he'd been about to propose to. His grandmother's ring sat heavy in his jacket pocket, its weight a mockery of everything tonight should have been. Territorial boundary in 2 miles, he muttered, recognizing the shift from ancient oaks to silver birches that glowed like bones in the moonlight. His wolf senses might be newer than most, but rage sharpened everything to crystal clarity. That's when he heard it. Chew! The explosive sneeze from his trunk was followed by muffled cursing and what sounded distinctly like a badger saying, "I told you not to breathe in the emergency blanket fibers." Lucien slammed the brakes. The Aston Martin skidded sideways, tires screaming against asphalt, leaving black marks on the pristine country road. He was out of the car in one fluid motion, yanking open the trunk to find... surprise! Happy attempted, his golden retriever tail wagging with nervous energy as all 7 of Beatrice's pets stared up at him from where they'd somehow crammed themselves into his trunk like the world's most ridiculous game of Tetris. When did you... Lucien sputtered, his brain struggling to process the sight. "You left your car unlocked when you were picking up the flowers," Grumpy said flatly, his black and white face expressing maximum judgment. Amateur move. Really? What kind of wolf leaves their territory unguarded? "We're quite compact when motivated," Selfie added, though his magnificent peacock tail was bent at 3 unfortunate angles. "Though this trunk is criminally small. Have you considered an SUV, something with actual legroom? This is a travesty of automotive design." "Get out!" Lucien's voice dropped to a growl that made the nearby crickets stop chirping. "No!" Doc said, his raven voice carrying absolute finality. "You're about to do something catastrophically stupid." "I'm about to defend. You're about to get yourself spectacularly killed," the raven interrupted, his black eyes reflecting the moon. "Which would devastate Beatrice, which would shatter her heart into approximately 10,000 pieces, which we cannot and will not allow." "She's not your mate," Lucien snapped, frustration and fear making his words sharp. "No," Bashful whispered from behind Sneezy, only his red tail visible. "But she's our person. And you're her person. So that makes you our responsibility too. It's basic math." Lucien stared at them, this ridiculous collection of magical animals crammed into his trunk like the world's strangest clown car. The absurdity of it almost broke through his rage. Almost. "Look," Happy said, jumping out and shaking himself, sending golden fur floating in the night air. "We all know you can't take Troy in a fair fight." "Thanks for the vote of confidence," Lucien said dryly. "But who said anything about fighting fair?" Grumpy climbed out, his badger claws clicking ominously on the asphalt. "You're thinking like a wolf. Think like us. Think like prey that survived." "What do you mean?" "Psychological warfare," Selfie announced, finally extracting his tail feathers with dramatic flair. "For instance, we could scratch his car, just absolutely destroy the paint job, leave our calling card, so to speak." "That's your master plan, vandalism?" "Have you seen his car?" Sneezy's nose twitched rapidly, his whiskers quivering with excitement. "It's a Bugatti Chiron, $3 million, custom white pearl paint that he personally imported from Italy. He washes it himself every Sunday with water blessed by Swiss monks." "How could you possibly know that?" "We're prey animals," Doc said dryly, preening one wing. "We make it our business to know predator habits." Also, he posts about it on Instagram, repeatedly, with hashtags. "We could pee on his tires," Happy suggested brightly, tail wagging with enthusiasm. "I've been holding it for an hour." "Or," Sleepy said, actually opening both amber eyes for once, "you could use the fact that his mother is hosting the governor's supernatural gala next week. The one where your entire exhibition was supposed to be featured. The one you've been working on for 3 years." Lucien went perfectly still, the night air suddenly feeling colder. "How do you know about that?" "Beatrice reads your business emails to us," Bashful admitted, his voice barely a whisper. "When she's worried about you, which is always, every day, sometimes twice a day." The Silverstone Foundation is your primary sponsor, Doc continued, his voice taking on a lecturing tone. They pull funding, your entire show collapses. 3 years of work, gone. Poof, like smoke. You think I care about money right now? Lucienne's voice cracked with emotion. No, Grumpy said, his gruff voice unexpectedly gentle. But Troy does. More importantly, his family does. Their reputation is everything. Use it like a weapon. Lucienne looked at the 7 animals arranged around him in the moonlight, each one ready to follow him into danger for Beatrice's sake. The moon caught their eyes, making them glow with determination. You should be protecting her, he said quietly, his anger softening into something more complex. Not here with me. We are protecting her, Happy said, pressing his warm, solid body against Lucienne's leg. By protecting what she loves most in this entire world. Her heart walks around in your ridiculously tall body, Sleepy added drowsily, already starting to close his eyes again. If something happens to you, she breaks. We've seen her worried about you. We won't see her grieve you. We can't. The simple, devastating truth of it hit him like ice water to the face. Lucienne's rage didn't diminish, but it focused, transformed, sharpened into something more useful than blind fury, into strategy. I promise, he said slowly, meaning every word, to be sensible, or as sensible as one can be when confronting the heir to the most dangerous pack in the region. That's all we ask, Doc nodded solemnly. Also, maybe don't call him pathetic to his face, or compare him to a wet poodle, or mention his receding hairline. He doesn't have a receding hairline. No, but he's sensitive about his forehead, trust me. No promises on the pathetic part, Lucienne muttered. They piled back into the trunk with a symphony of complaints. Gently, gently! These feathers don't grow back overnight! Stop stepping on my tail! Someone's elbow is in my spleen! And Lucienne drove the remaining distance at a somewhat less murderous speed. The Silverstone estate materialized from the darkness like a fever dream in white marble and silver steel. Modern architecture desperately trying to look ancient, all sharp angles and cold edges that caught the moonlight like knives. The gates opened before he reached them. Of course, Troy knew he was coming. The pretentious bastard probably had sensors. Lucienne parked deliberately close to the Bugatti, close enough that Troy would have to squeeze to get to his driver's door. From the trunk, he heard Grumpy mutter, I could accidentally scratch it while getting out, just a tiny bit, with my specially sharpened revenge claws. Stay in the car, Lucienne ordered. All of you, I mean it. Troy stood on the marble steps, still in his perfect suit, looking like winter had taken human form and decided to become an investment banker. Lucienne, the artist! Troy's voice dripped with false warmth, each word carefully poisoned with condescension. To what do I owe the visit to this humble abode? He gestured widely at the multi-million-dollar estate that looked like a mysterious deity had plucked a castle from England and plated it in the middle of the Victorian countryside as a cosmic joke. You marked my mate, Lucienne said simply, walking forward, each step deliberate. She doesn't bear your mark, Troy replied, glacier blue eyes glinting with amusement. Therefore, by definition, not your mate. Not yet. Not ever. Troy descended the steps with predatory grace, each movement calculated to intimidate. She bears mine. At the full moon she'll transform, and the bond will complete. It's done, signed, sealed, and soon to be delivered. Lucienne felt his wolf rising, clawing at his control, begging to be released. His newer instincts screamed to shift, to tear, to claim. But that's exactly what Troy expected, what he wanted. What would give him legal justification to kill? You tricked her, preyed on her love for animals, Lucienne said instead, keeping his voice level despite the growl underneath. Pretended to drown, the mighty Silverstone pack reduced to deception. What would your board of directors think? What would the Wall Street Supernatural Journal write? Troy's eyes narrowed to slits. Careful, artist. Or what? Lucienne stepped forward. He was taller than Troy by 3 inches, broader by an inch, but that physical advantage wouldn't serve him in a real fight. Troy had pure alpha blood, centuries of breeding for war. Lucien had 3 years of practice and determination. Not that he was afraid of Troy, but the pets were right, their words echoing in his mind. He couldn't hurt Beatrice. They loved each other. That was bedrock truth. If something happened to either of them, it would be like ripping away half a soul, leaving the other to bleed out slowly. No, he would never do that to Beatrice. Never. "You'll withdraw funding from my exhibition. Is that your threat, Troy?" Lucien kept his voice conversational, almost bored. "Go ahead. I'll tell everyone why. Art investor withdraws funding because artist objected to girlfriend being claimed through fraud. The headlines write themselves. Your PR team will love that." "You think public opinion matters to us, Lucien?" Troy's perfect composure cracked slightly, a muscle jumping in his jaw. "I think your $3 million toy over there suggests otherwise." Lucien glanced at the Bugatti, its white paint gleaming like fresh snow, or cocaine. "Image matters to the Silverstones. Always has. It's why you're desperate enough to trick a witch into saving you." Troy's perfectly controlled expression shattered for just a moment. They stood there, two wolves barely holding human shape, testosterone and fury making the air electric enough to taste. That's when the front door opened with a dramatic bang. "Troy, what's—" A feminine voice cut through the night air like a silver blade. "Lucien, the famous, one-of-a-kind, impossible, wonderful digital artist Lucien Lee is standing right in front of our home? Well, well, well." Every word dripped from Regina's perfect mouth like honey mixed with blood. This wasn't wolf instinct warning him. It was his artist's instinct, his hard-earned experience in dealing with dangerous people who smiled while calculating how to destroy you. And his default response kicked in immediately. Lucien nodded politely, though every muscle remained coiled for action. "Regina, haven't seen you in a while. Sorry to interrupt your otherwise peaceful evening. I didn't realize you lived here." She waved her perfectly manicured hand, each nail painted the exact shade of fresh blood. "Oh, temporary arrangement. We're renovating our home in New South Wales. Troy was kind enough to let me stay." Her smile could have frozen hell, though it seems he's been busy with other hospitality. Regina Silverstone descended the steps, her silver hair catching the moonlight like spun metal. Troy's distant cousin, matriarch of the family trust and one of Lucien's most significant patrons, the one who could destroy his career with a single phone call. "What are you doing here at this hour?" Her sharp eyes flicked between them, reading the tension like a wine connoisseur evaluating a vintage. "This seems rather heated." "Discussing a misunderstanding," Troy said smoothly, his mask sliding back into place. "He marked my mate," Lucien said flatly, refusing to play the game. Regina's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose toward her hairline. "Troy, tell me you didn't." "She's unclaimed," Troy growled, his composure cracking again. "If they're so together, why didn't he mark her? What's the problem? Is he impotent?" "How we conduct our relationship is none of your business." Lucien's voice dropped dangerously. "Marking and claiming is pack ritual. I respect that. But the way you did it, the way you marked her through deception, is unacceptable. And I will make sure the Silverstone reputation burns for it. Every supernatural publication, every human news outlet with any interest in our world. I'll make you famous, Troy. The alpha who had to trick a witch into touching him." Troy growled, intense to charge, his body already beginning to shift. Regina grabbed his arm with surprising strength. "No need for violence. I'm sure we can work out a civilized solution." "Simple," Lucien said, not backing down an inch. "He officially withdraws his mark and explains the deception publicly. And don't even think about making it sound like a rejection. She didn't reject you, you conned her." "Don't you dare order me around," Troy snarled, his teeth already lengthening. "I'll rip your head off with one bite." "Troy, calm down," Regina shouted, her voice carrying alpha command despite not being a wolf. "I'll make sure I take your entire family down before you get to my head," Lucien said calmly. Want to test me? Troy hunched down, muscles bunching for attack. Regina grabbed at him, physically pulling him upright with both hands. Inside, now! Regina ordered with such force that even Lucienne felt it. Troy actually stepped back. And you? She turned to Lucien, her eyes cold as winter stars. Don't be too cocky, Lucien. The Wolf Valley pack stands behind you. I know that. But threaten our family again and you will see consequences. There will be war and blood will be on your hands. So much blood. He has to withdraw his claim on my Beatrice, Lucienne said simply. If he doesn't, yes, there will be war. But it's on my terms, not the Wolf Valley pack's. She smiled, and it was all teeth. Oh, I didn't realize you have other backers. Do tell. Regina, there are lots of things you don't know about me. Lucienne turned to leave, then paused. And one thing you should know by now. I'll do anything for my mate. Anything. I was only with the Wolf Valley pack for 3 years. If you can't find any pack affiliation before that time, well, that tells you my real affiliation is beyond your reach. Far beyond. He left Regina standing there, her perfect face showing the first crack of uncertainty he'd ever seen. The walk back to his car felt like miles. He stood in the sudden silence, rage still simmering but oddly, satisfied. He'd won this round, even if the war was just beginning. He opened the trunk to 7 pairs of eager eyes. Seriously, though, who was your backer before the Wolf Valley pack? Happy asked immediately, practically vibrating with curiosity. Lucienne smiled, and it wasn't entirely nice. What you don't know won't hurt you, or get you killed. Then he saw the look on Grumpy's face, pure satisfaction mixed with mischief. Grumpy, please tell me you didn't actually scratch the Bugatti. I didn't, Grumpy said with perfect innocence, then added, Selfie did it with his tail, accidentally. Completely accidental, Selfie agreed, examining his tail feathers. These diamonds on my tail feathers are just so naturally sharp. Who could have predicted? Despite everything, Lucienne almost smiled. Come on, let's get you home to Beatrice. But when they arrived at the pet school, darkness greeted them. The lights were off. Beatrice's car was gone. The space where she should be felt wrong, empty, like a missing tooth. Where is she? Happy whined, his tail drooping between his legs, all joy extinguished. Lucienne pulled out his phone, saw the message he'd missed in his rage. Gone to see Mia and Jasmine. If you're reading this, you're alive, which means you did something stupid but survived. We need to talk strategy. Also, Jasmine says if you keep doing dangerous things alone, she's going to demonstrate why vampires still fear her after she retired. Love you. Don't do anything else stupid. B. She's safe, Lucienne told the pets, who were now milling around anxiously, sniffing the air for threats. She's with the Alpha and the Vampire Hunter. Good, Doc approved with a sharp nod. She's building an army. Smart woman. We don't need an army, Lucienne said, though he wasn't entirely sure anymore. No, Grumpy corrected, his voice certain. We need something better. We need to find out how a witch breaks a wolf's mark. From the back of the group, Sleepy mumbled something that sounded like, just bluff and make him reverse his claim. Lucienne just did. But when they all turned to look at him, the owl was already asleep, head tucked under his wing. They all turned back to Lucienne, 7 pairs of eyes demanding answers. Is that true? You bluffed Troy? Lucienne glanced around carefully, his wolf senses scanning for anyone or anything eavesdropping. A bat flew overhead, just a regular bat. The wind carried no unusual scents. Satisfied, he turned back to the animals. I don't bluff, he said quietly, his voice carrying a weight that made even Happy stop wagging. But if you love Beatrice, do not tell her about my threat to Troy, or what I might have to do. Got that? They all made various sounds of agreement, barks, caws, squeaks, and huffs, which he could only interpret as yes. But Grumpy studied him with those 2 intelligent badger eyes. You're connected to something dangerous, aren't you? Something that scares even the Silverstones. Lucienne didn't answer. Chapter 4. The Silverstone estate's marble halls echoed with raised voices, a sound the servants had learned to flee from. Regina found Troy in his study, surrounded by maps of Wolf Valley territory, his white blonde hair disheveled from running his hands through it. "You're destroying everything our ancestors built," Regina said, her voice sharp as winter ice. Each word was carefully measured, but fury blazed beneath the surface. "The White Wolf pack heir, chasing after some witch who makes house pets talk. Have you lost your mind?" Troy didn't look up from his maps. "She's not just some witch." "No?" Regina stepped closer, her heels clicking against Italian marble like countdown to an explosion. "Then what is she? What makes Beatrice Everlyn so special that you'd risk our entire bloodline's reputation?" "You wouldn't understand," Troy muttered, but his fingers had stilled on the map, trembling slightly. "Try me," Regina challenged, moving into his line of sight. "We've been friends since we were pups. Allies through every pack conflict. My family has been the power behind your throne for 7 generations. I think I've earned an explanation." Troy finally looked up, and Regina's breath caught at what she saw in his glacier blue eyes. Not the cold calculation she expected, but something raw and desperate. "I dream of her," he said quietly, the admission seeming to surprise even him. "Every night. This white wolf with silver eyes that see straight through me. She runs through moonlight, and I—" He stopped, jaw clenching. "You what?" Regina's voice had gone dangerously soft. "I can't breathe when she's not there," Troy exploded, surging to his feet. The map scattered, floating to the floor like dead leaves. "I wake up and my chest feels hollow. I see her everywhere, in frost on windows, in moonlight on water. She's burned into my brain, Regina." The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Regina's perfectly manicured nails dug crescents into her palms. "There are dozens of eligible wolves in our pack," she said, each word precise as a scalpel cut. "Pure bloodlines, proven shifters, women who've trained their whole lives to be an alpha's mate. Why her?" "Because none of them are her." Troy's control shattered completely. He grabbed the desk edge hard enough to crack the wood. "Don't you think I've tried? I've met every eligible wolf from here to the Canadian border. They're all shadows, pale imitations of what I see when I close my eyes." "You're talking about a vision, not a person," Regina said, struggling to keep her voice level when everything inside her was screaming. "She is the vision," Troy insisted, pacing now like the caged predator he was. "The moment I saw her in that storm, drenched and fierce and pulling me from the water despite not knowing what I was, I knew. She's the white wolf from my dreams. She has to be." Regina watched him pace, watched the obsession play across his aristocratic features, and felt something inside her chest crack like ice over deep water. "And if you're wrong?" she asked quietly. "If she's just a witch who happened to save you?" Troy stopped mid-stride, turning to face her with an expression she'd never seen before, vulnerable and terrifying in its intensity. "Then I'll make her become what I see," he said simply. "The mark will transform her. She'll become the white wolf from my visions, and then—" He trailed off, lost in whatever fantasy played behind his eyes. "Then what?" Regina pressed, though her throat felt lined with broken glass. "Then I'll finally be able to breathe again," Troy finished, and the naked need in his voice made Regina step back. She forced her face into a mask of concern, though rage boiled beneath her skin like acid. "You're not thinking clearly. This obsession—" "It's not an obsession," Troy cut her off, but his laugh was hollow. "It's destiny. You wouldn't understand, Regina. You've never been in love." The words hung in the air between them like a blade. Regina stood perfectly still for 3 heartbeats. Then she smiled, the kind of smile that made smart people run. "You're right," she said pleasantly. Too pleasantly. "I wouldn't understand. Excuse me, Troy. I need to. Review our family's investments." She turned and walked out, her steps measured and calm. Troy had already turned back to his maps, lost in his fevered planning, and didn't see her face transform from pleasant mask to something far more dangerous. Regina's private chambers were 3 floors up, in the estate's east wing where no one else was permitted. The servants called it the Silver Tower, though never to her face. They also whispered about the strange sounds that sometimes escaped from it, like winter wind through broken glass, like voices speaking in languages that predated words. She locked the door with 3 different mechanisms: mechanical, magical, and something in between. The curtains were already drawn, blocking out the afternoon sun. Regina preferred darkness for this kind of work. The mirror stood in the corner, covered in black silk that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. 7 feet tall, framed in silver so tarnished it looked like captured smoke. Her grandmother's mirror, and her grandmother's before that. A family heirloom that predated the Silverstone pack itself. Regina pulled off the silk covering with practiced ease, though her skin crawled at the touch of it. The mirror's surface wasn't glass. It was something older, something that had never been given a proper name because naming it would give it more power than it already possessed. She lit the 13 candles in their prescribed pattern, black wax mixed with wolfsbane and her own blood, harvested during the last new moon. The flames flickered green, then purple, then a color that didn't exist in the normal spectrum. "Show me," she commanded, pressing her palms against the not-glass surface. It was warm, like living flesh, and seemed to pulse against her hands. "Show me the vision that haunts Troy Silverstone." The mirror's surface rippled like disturbed water. For a moment, Regina saw her own reflection. Silver hair perfect, ice blue eyes desperate, and something hollow in her expression that she quickly looked away from. Then the image changed. The white wolf materialized like frost spreading across glass. It was magnificent. Regina hated admitting it, but there was no other word. The wolf's fur wasn't just white. It held every shade of winter within it, from fresh snow to ancient glaciers. Its eyes were silver, yes, but silver like starlight, like moonlight on water, like every beautiful cold thing Regina had ever loved. The wolf moved through the vision with impossible grace, and Regina could see why Troy was obsessed. This wasn't just a wolf. This was power given form, winter made flesh, everything the white wolf pack claimed to be distilled into a single perfect creature. "Show me her human face," Regina demanded, though part of her already knew. The image shifted, and there she was, Beatrice Everlyn. The resemblance was undeniable now. The same delicate bone structure translated into looping features, the same defiant tilt to her head, the same eyes that seemed to see too much. Regina's nails scraped against the mirror's surface, producing a sound like fingernails on a coffin lid. "Tell me the identity of this white wolf," she commanded the darkness within the mirror. The voice that answered wasn't heard so much as felt, crawling up her spine like cold fingers. "That knowledge belongs to tomorrow," it said, and Regina could taste grave dirt in the words. "This is a vision of what will be, not what is." Regina's heart leaped. Then it can be changed? All futures can be changed, until they become present. Can you make Troy see me as the white wolf? Make him believe I'm the one from his visions? The darkness laughed, a sound like ice cracking over deep water. "I cannot create what does not exist. I cannot forge love where there is none. I cannot build desire from empty air. Positive emotions are not my domain." Regina Silverstone. Regina went very still. "But negative emotions are?" "Oh, yes," the voice purred, and now it sounded pleased. "Fear, jealousy, rage, despair, these are my gifts to give. These I can shape like clay, plant like seeds, nurture like poisoned gardens." Regina stared at the image of Beatrice as White Wolf, and slowly, carefully, she began to smile. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the kind of smile that would have sent Troy running if he'd seen it, the kind that made the mirror's darkness pulse with approval. "Then we'll work with what we have," she said softly, her reflection in the dark mirror showing something that barely looked human anymore. "If I can't make him love me, I'll make sure she becomes something he'll fear, something he'll have to destroy." The candles flared higher, casting shadows that writhed like dying wolves on the walls. The mirror's surface began to bubble and shift, showing her glimpses of what could be: a white wolf with foam at its mouth, silver eyes turned red with rage, Troy's face twisted in horror as he raised his claws to strike down the thing he'd loved. "Show me how," Regina commanded, her voice taking on harmonics that shouldn't exist in a human throat. "Show me how to poison a transformation. Show me how to turn a dream into a nightmare." The darkness eagerly complied, pouring its secrets into her mind like bitter wine. Regina absorbed every detail, every ingredient, every incantation. Wolfsbane for the base, yes, but also darker things, mushrooms that grew only in graveyards, water collected during a lunar eclipse, and most importantly, apple seeds from trees watered with blood. She had most of the ingredients already. The Silverstone estate's apple orchard had been her private project for years, the trees fed with sacrifices the pack never knew about. Their fruit looked perfect, white as snow, red as blood, but their seeds contained enough concentrated malice to corrupt any transformation. "Perfect," Regina whispered, and the mirror's surface finally stilled, showing only her reflection again. But even that had changed. Her eyes held depths that hadn't been there before, shadows that moved independently of the light. She blew out the candles one by one, each extinguished flame releasing a whisper of smoke that smelled like rotting apples. Tomorrow she would visit Beatrice Everlyn with a peace offering, a beautiful potion in a crystal vial, sweetened with apple blossom to mask the poison underneath. And when the full moon rose and Beatrice transformed into the white wolf of Troy's dreams, she would become something else entirely, a rabid beast that Troy would have no choice but to put down. Then, Regina said to her reflection, which smiled back with too many teeth, when he's covered in her blood and drowning in guilt, I'll be there to comfort him, to help him forget, and eventually he'll realize that the only wolf he needs is the one who's always been by his side. The mirror went dark, but Regina's smile remained, sharp as winter and twice as cold. After all, every fairy tale needed a poisoned apple. And Regina had always been very, very good with poisons. Chapter 5. The barn behind Jasmine's Vineyard Resort smelled of old wine barrels and lavender, a combination that usually soothed Beatrice. Not tonight. She'd commandeered the space after the restaurant closed, spreading 17 failed potion attempts across the wooden work table like evidence of her desperation. Each vial represented hours of work, desperate hope, and crushing failure. Her hands shook as she arranged them by color, a nervous habit from her lab work. Purple for transformation blockers, blue for mark neutralizers, green for cleansing rituals, all useless, all failures. "This one might neutralize the mark's magic," Beatrice said, holding up a vial of opalescent liquid that shifted between purple and silver. Her voice carried forced optimism that fooled no one. "Wolfsbane, moonstone powder, and enough concentrated nightshade to kill you before it touches the mark," Jasmine interrupted, her vampire hunter instincts sharp despite retirement. She plucked the vial from Beatrice's trembling fingers with the practiced ease of someone who disarmed far more dangerous things. "I've seen this mixture before, Bea. A vampire tried to use it to break a blood bond. He died screaming." The casual mention of death made Beatrice's stomach clench. "What about this?" She grabbed another bottle with desperate enthusiasm, this one glowing faintly green. "It's based on the cleansing ritual the European covens use for removing fertility curses, not mate marks," Mia said gently, her psychologist voice bleeding through, the tone she used with particularly fragile patients. She sat cross-legged on a hay bale, laptop balanced on her knees, surrounded by ancient pack law texts she'd borrowed from the pack archives. The screen's blue light cast shadows under her eyes. She hadn't slept either. Different magical signatures entirely. It would be like trying to remove a tattoo with makeup remover. Beatrice's hands clenched around the useless potion hard enough that the glass creaked. The mark on her neck pulsed with heat, brighter than it had been an hour ago, definitely brighter. The silver glow was starting to show through the concealer she'd applied in 3 thick layers. "There has to be something," she whispered, but even she heard the crack in her voice. The words came out small, broken, nothing like the confident woman who'd rebuilt her life around magical education and helping others. I can't become his. I can't wake up tomorrow night and look at Troy Silverstone with—" She couldn't even finish the sentence. "There is a way," Jasmine said, pulling up another chair. The old wood creaked under her weight as she leaned forward, her dark hair falling like a curtain. Her tactical mind was working. Beatrice could see it in the way her eyes sharpened, the same look she got when planning a vampire hunt. "We proved the mark was given without genuine intent. Pack law is clear. A mark given through deception or without true feeling can be legally disputed." "But that's the problem," Mia said, closing her laptop with a soft click that sounded like a coffin closing. "We don't know what Troy was feeling when he marked you. If there was even a spark of genuine attraction, genuine intent to claim. Then the mark stands," Beatrice finished, her throat burning like she'd swallowed glass. "And in less than 24 hours, I transform into his mate." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. The barn fell silent except for the distant sound of wind through grapevines and the frantic beating of Beatrice's heart. Too fast, too hard, already changing. "What does it feel like?" Jasmine asked quietly. "The mark. Maybe if we understand the sensation, we can figure out the magic behind it." Beatrice pressed her fingers to the mark, feeling its unnatural heat. Like there's a rope tied around my soul and someone's pulling it. Every hour the pull gets stronger. And there's this voice, not really a voice, more like an instinct, telling me to go north, to go to him. She laughed bitterly. "My body wants to walk out of here right now and find Troy. My feet keep pointing toward the door without my permission." "That's the mate bond establishing itself," Mia said, her clinical tone not quite hiding her worry. "Your wolf is recognizing its chosen alpha." "I don't have a wolf," Beatrice exploded, slamming her palm on the table. The potion vials jumped and rattled. "I'm not a shifter. I'm a witch who makes talking pets and protection potions that barely work half the time. I'm not meant to transform. I'm not meant to be claimed. I'm meant to marry Lucien and run my school and have a normal life with the man I've loved since I was 8 years old." The outburst left her panting. Mia and Jasmine exchanged a look, the kind of look people share when they don't know how to fix something irreparably broken. The mark pulsed again, and this time Beatrice gasped. It felt like ice spreading through her veins, followed immediately by fire. Her bones ached like they were trying to reshape themselves from the inside out. "It's getting stronger," Mia observed, her analytical eyes missing nothing. "Your body's already beginning to respond. The preliminary transformation. How do you feel exactly?" "I need specifics." "Like my bones itch," Beatrice admitted, rubbing her arms hard enough to leave red marks. "Like my skin doesn't fit right anymore. Like there's something inside me trying to claw its way." She doubled over, sudden pain lancing through her spine like someone had shoved a hot poker through her vertebrae. The empty potion bottles rattled on the table. One fell, shattering on the barn floor with a musical crash. "Beatrice!" Both women were beside her instantly, hands reaching out to steady her. "I'm okay," she lied through gritted teeth, tasting blood where she'd bitten her tongue. Another wave hit, and this time her vision went white at the edges. When it cleared, she could have sworn the barn looked different, sharper. She could smell everything. Jasmine's vanilla perfume mixed with gun oil from the weapon she still carried, Mia's lavender shampoo and the stress of sweat underneath it, the lingering scent of 20 different wines from the restaurant, and underneath it all, something wild calling to her, something that smelled like winter and pine and home, except home was in the wrong direction. "The mark's too strong," Mia said quietly, and Beatrice heard what she didn't say. Too strong to be reversed by external force, too strong for potions or magic or clever tricks. You mean Troy has to withdraw it himself? Jasmine translated, her tactical mind cutting to the heart of it like a blade through silk. And if he has genuine feelings for Beatrice, he has no reason to withdraw it. Beatrice straightened slowly, her body still trembling like a leaf in a storm. So I'm trapped. Either he's lying about caring, and the mark is false, or he genuinely wants me, and I'm his. She wanted to scream, wanted to rage, wanted to tear the mark from her neck with her bare hands, even if it took her skin with it. The barn door burst open with enough force to knock over a stack of wine crates. They crashed to the ground, bottles rolling across the floor. "Beatrice!" Lucien's voice, raw with panic. He stood silhouetted in the doorway, all 6'7" of him radiating protective fury. His chest heaved like he'd run the entire way from town. His usually perfectly styled hair was wild, his clothes disheveled. Behind him, 7 familiar shapes tumbled into the barn, her pets looking equally frantic. "We felt it," Happy panted, his golden retriever form shaking so hard his tags jingled. The pain. Across town, we all felt it, like someone was tearing you apart. "Told you the bond was getting stronger," Doc observed, though his usual dry tone was strained. The raven's black feathers were ruffled, his dark eyes too bright. "We're connected to her. When she hurts, we know." "Beatrice is our person," Bashful whispered from behind Sneezy, only his red tail visible. "Our person is in pain." Beatrice tried to stand to go to Lucienne, but her legs wouldn't cooperate. They felt wrong, too long, joints bending in ways that weren't quite human anymore. She stumbled, and then he was there, crossing the barn in 3 strides, catching her before she fell. "You're burning up," he murmured, his large hands impossibly gentle as they cupped her face. His palms felt blessedly cool against her fevered skin. "Wildflower, you're actually burning." She could see herself reflected in his storm-gray eyes, pale, glowing faintly silver, looking like something between human and other, not Beatrice anymore, not quite. "The mark," she whispered, leaning into his touch because she might never feel it again after tonight. He smelled like home, pine resin and turpentine from his art studio, coffee from the thermos he always carried, and that particular musk that was purely him. She wanted to bottle that scent, to carry it with her into whatever darkness was coming. "It's changing me. I can feel it pulling, Lucienne, like gravity, like I'm falling towards something I don't want." His arms tightened around her, and she felt him tremble. This man who'd faced down wolves and vampires, who'd walked into Troy's territory alone, was shaking because he couldn't fight this, couldn't paint this away or negotiate it or challenge it to single combat. "We'll fix this," he said, but she heard the desperation underneath the determination. "How?" The word came out broken, barely a whisper. "How do you fix destiny? How do you fight magic that's already in my blood?" She pressed her face against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. Too fast, panicked. "I can feel her, Lucian, the wolf. She's not me, but she's becoming me. And she thinks Troy smells interesting. She wants to know what he tastes like. She wants to run to him." Lucienne made a sound like someone had gutted him, his hands fisted in her hair, not pulling, just holding on like she might disappear if he let go. Another wave of pain hit, this one sharp enough to make her cry out. The sound that came from her throat wasn't entirely human. Her vision fractured, and for a moment she saw herself from outside, a woman glowing with silver light, shadows of a wolf overlapping her human form. Beautiful and terrible and wrong, wrong, wrong. "Outside!" she gasped, pushing away from him even though it felt like tearing off her own skin. "Need air. Can't breathe." She stumbled toward the door, her body moving wrong, joints bending in ways that felt almost right but weren't. Not yet. The mark pulsed, pulsed, pulsed in time with her racing heart, each beat dragging her closer to something irreversible. The night air hit her like a physical force. Every scent in the vineyard slammed into her consciousness, grapes fermenting with sugar and thyme, earth cooling after the day's heat, small animals scurrying through the vines. Prey, her new instincts whispered. Food, chase, hunt. The moon, nearly full, seemed to call to her bones with a song she'd never heard but somehow knew. Beatrice, Lucien's voice right behind her. Always behind her. Always there. She turned to find him watching her with eyes that held too much emotion to name. Love, yes, but also grief. Like he was already mourning her. Like she was already gone, and he was just looking at her ghost. "Mark me," she said suddenly, the words tumbling out desperate and raw. "Right now, your mark might override his. We don't know until we try—" "No." The word was soft, but absolute. "Lucien, please." She grabbed his hands, pressed them to her throat where the mark burned like a brand. She could feel his pulse through his palms, rabbit quick with fear. "Bite me. Claim me. Make me yours before I become his." "No." He pulled his hands away but didn't step back. His jaw was clenched so tight she could hear his teeth grinding. "Why?" The word came out as a wail. "Is it because I'm already tainted? Already marked by another wolf? Am I damaged goods now?" "Stop." His voice cracked like a whip. "Don't you dare. Don't you dare think that." "Then why won't you?" "Because you're already sick from one mark." The words exploded from him. "Your body is fighting the transformation. You're burning with fever, Beatrice. Your organs are already under stress, trying to adapt to magic they were never meant to hold. Adding another mark, another magical claim." He shook his head, and she saw tears in his eyes. Lucienne, her strong artist, her gentle giant, was crying. "It could kill you, would probably kill you. And I won't. I can't. I will not be the reason you die. I'd rather die than—" "Don't." His voice broke completely. "Don't say that. Don't ever say that. Don't you understand? I would rather lose you to him than lose you entirely. I would rather know you're in this world, breathing, living, even if it's not with me, than know I killed you trying to keep you. So you'll just accept it?" She stared at him, tears burning her eyes, making him blur into watercolors. "You'll just let me transform into another wolf's mate? You'll watch me look at Troy the way I look at you? You'll let me—" She couldn't finish. The thought of her body responding to Troy's touch the way it responded to Lucien's made her want to claw her own skin off. Lucien was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was steady, but she could hear his heart breaking in every word, could see it in the way his hands shook, the way his eyes went dull, like someone had turned off the light inside him. "If that's what keeps you alive?" "Yes." He cupped her face again, thumbs brushing away tears she hadn't realized were falling. They came faster now, hot and endless. "I love you too much to be the reason you die, Beatrice. Even if it means losing you to him, even if it means watching you become." He stopped, jaw working like he was physically chewing the words. "His," she finished for him, the word tasting like poison. "You'll never be his," Lucien said fiercely, suddenly pulling her against him, holding her so tight she could barely breathe. "Your body might transform. The mark might claim you. But your heart, your soul, the part of you that matters, that's yours to give. And if you can't give it to me, then at least you're alive to give it to someone. Someday." "I don't want someone else," she sobbed into his chest, her tears soaking his shirt. "I want you. It's always been you. Since we were kids and you shared your sandwich with me. Since you spent 3 months learning flower language just to leave me messages. Since you bought that experimental potion to become a shifter because you thought you weren't enough for me as just human. You've always been enough. You've always been everything." "I know," he said, and pressed his forehead to hers. His tears mixed with hers, salt and sorrow. "I know, Wildflower, and you've been everything to me. My muse, my heart, my reason for breathing. Which is why I need you to keep breathing, even if it's not beside me." The mark pulsed again, and this time she saw Troy's face in her mind, those glacier blue eyes, that winter smile. Her wolf, the one being born inside her against her will, stirred with interest. The wolf found him. Appealing, strong, alpha, worthy. No, she whispered, but she was talking to herself, to the thing growing inside her. No, you don't get to want him. I choose. Me, not you. But the wolf didn't listen. It never would. They stood there in the moonlight, holding each other while the mark grew brighter, pulling her toward a future neither of them wanted. Inside the barn, she could hear Mia and Jasmine arguing in low voices. Mia's clinical analysis, Jasmine's tactical planning, both equally helpless. The pets whimpered and paced, their distress a physical weight in the air. Happy was crying. She could hear his distinctive whine. Grumpy was muttering curses. Doc was reciting pack law in a monotone, like a prayer that might still save them. I had the ring, Lucien said suddenly, pulling back to look at her. Tonight. I was going to propose tonight. The words hit her like a physical blow. Lucien. My grandmother's ring. The one with the moonstones that look like your eyes when you're happy. He pulled the small velvet box from his pocket, opened it. The ring caught the moonlight, throwing tiny rainbows. I had this whole speech planned about how you make me see colors I can't paint, how you're the masterpiece I've been trying to capture my whole life. Stop, she begged, but he kept going, like if he didn't say it now, he never would. I was going to tell you about the first time I knew I loved you, really knew. You were trying to teach a squirrel to fetch, and it kept bringing you acorns instead of the ball. You were laughing so hard you couldn't breathe, and the sunlight was in your hair. And I thought, I want to watch her laugh for the rest of my life. I want to be the reason she smiles like that. You are, she said, reaching for the ring, but he closed the box. Not anymore, he said quietly. Tomorrow night, under the full moon, you'll transform. And even if by some miracle we break the mark afterward, you'll never be fully human again. The wolf will always be there, and she'll always remember her first alpha. The truth of it sat between them like a stone. Once transformed, once claimed, some part of her would always belong to Troy. Even if they found a way to break it, she'd be forever changed. The mark pulsed its agreement, and Beatrice bit back a scream. The pain was getting worse. Her bones felt like they were splintering, reforming, trying to become something new. I love you, she said, because what else was there to say? I love you, and I'm sorry, and I love you. I know, he said, pulling her close again. I know. Another wave of agony crashed through her, stronger than before, and her legs gave out completely. Lucien caught her, lifting her into his arms in one smooth motion. The studio, he said to Mia and Jasmine, who had followed them outside. I'm taking her to rest. But we found, Mia started. Tomorrow, he said firmly. Whatever you found, we'll try tomorrow. She needs sleep now. The ride to his studio was a blur of pain and exhaustion. By the time Lucien settled her on the familiar couch, the one where she'd posed for countless paintings, Beatrice could barely keep her eyes open. The pets arranged themselves around her like guardian sentinels, and the familiar scent of oil paint and turpentine felt like home. Stay, she mumbled, her fingers weakly grasping his shirt. Always, he lied softly, smoothing her burning forehead. Sleep now, wildflower. Love you, she breathed, already drifting away. No matter what happens, love you. The last thing she felt was his hand stroking her hair, his voice humming the melody he'd sung to her screaming flowers all those years ago. Then sleep claimed her, deep and dreamless, while the moon watched through the window, counting down the hours until everything would change. She never heard him whisper goodbye. Chapter 6. The abandoned cathedral stood like a broken tooth against the midnight sky, its stained glass windows long since shattered, moonlight streaming through the skeletal remains of its rose window. Lucien parked 3 blocks away. Old habits died hard, and the vampires had taught him well about never giving them easy access to your escape road. The pets had been suspicious when he'd left. Doc's black eyes had followed him to the door, too knowing. Grumpy had actually growled, but they'd stayed with Beatrice, forming a protective circle around her sleeping form, and that was all that mattered. Now standing before the cathedral's rotting oak doors, Lucien touched the scar on his left palm, a thin white line that had never quite faded. 3 years since he'd sworn never to return. 3 years of freedom, all ending tonight. He pushed open the door and the smell hit him immediately. Old blood and older roses, the signature scent of the court. They never changed. Vampires found comfort in consistency, even in their decay. Lucien Lee. The voice floated down from the shadowed rafters, silk wrapped around broken glass. The prodigal artist returns. She materialized from darkness like she was born from it. Cassandra unchanged after 3 years, after 3 centuries. Her beauty was the kind that hurt to look at directly, all sharp edges disguised as soft curves. Pale skin that had never known sunlight, black hair that moved like liquid, and eyes the color of fresh blood. "Cassandra," he said, keeping his voice level. No weakness, never show weakness. No hello? No you look well? No sorry I abandoned the court without notice? She descended the altar steps, each movement deliberate, predatory. 3 years, Lucien. 3 years without a single painting. Do you know what that did to certain interested parties? I'm not here to reminisce. No? She was in front of him now, close enough that he could see the hunger in her eyes. Not for blood, but for something else. Art. Beauty. The things Lucien could create that no vampire could, no matter how many centuries they existed. Then why are you here? I need something. Her laugh echoed through the empty cathedral, disturbing a cluster of bats in the bell tower. Of course you do. No one returns to the court for social calls. She circled him slowly like a shark testing the water. What's her name? Lucien's jaw tightened. How did you... Please. Cassandra waved a dismissive hand, her nails catching the moonlight like tiny daggers. You smell like fear and desperation and... Wolf? Her perfect nose wrinkled. You let them turn you? Oh, Lucien, you were so much more interesting as a human. Her name is Beatrice, he said, refusing to be baited. And I need someone dead. Straight to murder. How delightfully unlike you. Cassandra stopped directly in front of him, tilting her head. The gentle artist who once cried when I killed a spider in front of him now wants blood on his hands? Not my hands. I need vampire poison. The kind that can kill an alpha wolf. The temperature in the cathedral dropped 10 degrees. Cassandra's playful demeanor vanished, replaced by something ancient and calculating. An alpha, she repeated slowly. You want to kill an alpha wolf. Do you have any idea what you're asking? The political ramifications? The council hasn't authorized a wolf killing in 50 years. I don't need the council's authorization. I need yours. Mine, she smiled, showing just the tips of her fangs. And what makes you think I have access to such things? Because you're not just Cassandra anymore, Lucien said quietly. You're the Bloodkeeper now. Marcus told me before I left. You inherited the position after Dimitri's unfortunate sunrise encounter. Her eyes flashed, surprise then respect. You always were too observant for your own good. Yes, I keep the blood vaults now, including the special collections. She moved to the altar, running her fingers along the crumbling stone. Vampire poison that can kill an alpha wolf. Do you know how we make such a thing? I don't care. You should. She turned back to him, and for the first time, she looked serious. We starve a vampire for decades, drive them mad with hunger. Then we feed them a single drop of wolf's blood, just enough to wake their appetite, but not enough to satisfy. They produce a venom so concentrated, so purely hostile to wolf biology, that even a scratch would be fatal. The process destroys the vampire. They burn from the inside out, screaming. Lucien's stomach turned, but he kept his expression neutral. I don't care. No, Cassandra said softly. You don't. Love has made you cruel. How fascinating. She produced a key from thin air, or maybe from shadow, it was hard to tell. I have what you need. A dagger, pre-treated. One cut, no matter how small, and your alpha dies within minutes. What's the price? She smiled, and it was almost sad. Oh, Lucien, you know there's only one thing the court wants from you. My art. Your exclusive service. 20 years. The number hit him like a physical blow. 20 years? 1 year for each vampire who's gone hungry without your portraits to sustain them. Did you think we fed only on blood? She moved closer, close enough that he could feel the cold radiating from her skin. Your art fed our souls, Lucien. The way you captured humanity, preserved it on canvas. It reminded us what we lost. Some of us survived on those paintings alone. 5 years, he countered, though he knew it was useless. 20. 10. 20. Her voice hardened. This isn't a negotiation. 20 years, or your little witch transforms tomorrow night and spends eternity bound to another wolf. Lucien closed his eyes, seeing Beatrice's face. The way she'd looked at him tonight, burning with fever, begging him to mark her. The way she'd said she loved him, like it was the only truth in the world. Exclusive service means what exactly? You paint for us alone. You live where we tell you. You go where we send you. No contact with your former life. No letters, no messages, nothing. Cassandra's voice gentled slightly. She can't know what you've done, Lucien. The magic of the contract requires complete severance. If you try to contact her, even once, the deal breaks and the alpha lives. She'll think I abandoned her. Yes, she'll hate me. Perhaps. But she'll be alive and free to hate you. Lucien opened his eyes, meeting Cassandra's bloody gaze. Show me the dagger. She smiled, triumphant and pitying all at once. With theatrical slowness, she unlocked a hidden panel in the altar. Inside, resting on black velvet, lay a blade that seemed to absorb light, rather than reflect it. It was beautiful in the way deadly things often were, sleek, curved, no longer than his hand. Obsidian from the volcanic heart of Mount Vesuvius, Cassandra explained, lifting it reverently. Forged in vampire blood, cooled in wolf tears. The poison is in the blade itself. It never needs reapplication. How do I know it will work? Because I'm giving you my word, and despite what you think of us, the court honors its contracts. She held the dagger out to him, handle first. One cut, that's all. Even a nick while shaking hands would be enough. Lucien reached for it, then hesitated. If I do this, when I do this, what happens to Beatrice? After Troy dies? If he's marked her but hasn't claimed her fully, the mark breaks with his death. She'll be free. There might be some discomfort. The wolf that was forming will die with its alpha, but she'll survive and she'll be human again. Might be discomfort? She'll feel him die, Cassandra said bluntly. Through the mark. It will hurt, but it won't kill her. Lucien's hand hovered over the dagger. 20 years. He'd be in his 50s when he returned. Beatrice would have moved on, maybe married someone else, had children. The life they'd planned would be dust. But she'd be alive. She'd be free. He took the dagger. The moment his fingers closed around the handle, he felt the contract snap into place, invisible chains wrapping around his soul. Cassandra smiled, satisfied. It begins the moment the alpha dies, she said. You'll have 1 hour to. Say goodbye, though I wouldn't recommend it. Clean breaks heal faster. I know. He tucked the dagger into his jacket, feeling its unnatural cold against his ribs. Anything else? Yes. Cassandra moved closer, and for a moment, she almost looked human. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. Love makes us do terrible things. I should know. I've had centuries to regret mine. Don't. The wolves will suspect vampire involvement when he dies. They always do. Your little witch might be blamed as a conspirator. I'll make it look natural. Nothing about that blade is natural, Lucien. It leaves a signature, black veins spreading from the wound. Any wolf who sees it will know. She paused. Unless what? Unless you make it look like self-defense. If the alpha is attacking someone when he dies, pack law protects the defender. Lucien's mind was already working, planning. Tomorrow night, during the transformation ceremony, when Troy tried to claim Beatrice, if he was attacking her, if Lucien was protecting her. Thank you, he said, meaning it. Don't thank me. You've just signed away 20 years of your life for a woman who might not wait for you. Cassandra turned away, dismissing him. The court will expect you at the Venice estate within 24 hours of the Alpha's death. Don't be late. I won't. He was at the door when she called out one last time. Lucian, that first painting you do for us, make it of her, so you don't forget her face over the decades. He didn't answer. Couldn't. Outside, the night air felt thick, oppressive. The dagger seemed to pulse against his ribs in time with his heartbeat. In a few hours, the sun would rise, then set, and when the full moon rose tomorrow night, Troy Silverstone would die. Lucien drove back to his studio on autopilot, his mind carefully blank. If he thought too hard about what he'd just done, he might turn around, might throw the dagger in the river, might choose a different path. But then he walked into his studio and saw Beatrice sleeping on his couch, her face twisted in pain even in dreams, the mark on her neck glowing silver bright. The pets looked up at him with knowing eyes. It's done? Doc asked quietly. Lucian didn't answer. He simply sat on the floor beside the couch, took Beatrice's burning hand in his, and began to memorize every line of her face. 20 years was a long time to hold on to a memory, but for her, for this, he would make it enough. The moon continued its path across the sky, indifferent to the hearts breaking beneath it. Tomorrow night, under its full face, blood would spill, and everything would change. Chapter 7. Beatrice woke to the sound of violent brushstrokes, paint hitting canvas like blood splatter. The studio reeked of turpentine and desperation, late afternoon light streaming through windows to illuminate what looked like madness. Lucien stood at his easel, shirtless, paint covering his arms up to the elbows. His shoulders were rigid, muscles bunched with tension she could feel from across the room. The brush in his hand moved with savage precision, creating something between beauty and violence. How long was I asleep? Her voice came out rough, throat dry. The mark on her neck pulsed with her heartbeat. No, with two heartbeats. Hers and something else. Something pulling her northward with invisible chains. Few hours. He didn't turn. The brush never stopped moving. Don't get up. But she was already standing, her body moving with an alien grace that made her stomach turn. She could smell everything. 23 different paint colors, cadmium red, ultramarine, burnt umber, each distinct as perfume. Lucian's exhaustion, bitter coffee and salt, his fear, sharp as copper pennies, and underneath it all, something metallic, something that smelled like endings. You have a plan. Not a question. She knew him too well. Rest, Beatrice. You have a plan and you won't tell me what it is. She moved closer, bare feet silent on paint-stained floors. You did something last night while I slept. His brush paused for exactly one heartbeat. She could hear it, her new senses tracking everything, then resumed its frantic pace. There's nothing to tell. That's when she saw what he was painting. Not one portrait, dozens. Every canvas in the studio showed her face, laughing over morning coffee, crying in the rain, sleeping in sunlight, reading to the pets. The one he worked on now showed her from last night, tears on her cheeks, desperation in her eyes, mouth open in a plea he'd refused. Lucian, I need to remember. His voice cracked like breaking glass. In case things go wrong, I need to remember everything. Every expression, every moment, every version of you that ever existed. Her throat closed. He was painting her like a man preparing for war, like a man saying goodbye. The pets were arranged around the studio like a funeral gathering. Happy's tail hung limp. Grumpy faced the wall. Doc perched motionless, black eyes reflecting nothing. Even Selfie's magnificent tail dragged on the floor. What aren't you telling me? She demanded. Nothing, Happy yelped, spinning in an anxious circle. We're telling you absolutely nothing about the thing that happened while you were sleeping that we absolutely cannot mention." "What thing?" "The thing we promised not to tell you about," Bashful whispered from behind the paint cabinet, only his red tail visible. "Which is?" "We can't say," Doc said firmly, but his voice held grief. "We made a promise. Ravens don't break promises." "A promise about what Lucien did last night?" Every pet suddenly found something fascinating to study. The ceiling, the floor, their own paws. "Oh, for the love of—" Grumpy exploded, whirling around. "He threatened Troy and Regina. Said he had connections from before Wolf Valley that would destroy them. Connections that made even Regina step back. There, I said it, sue me." "Grumpy," Happy howled. "She deserves to know." The badger's eyes blazed. If he's planning something that could get him killed, if he's calling in debts from— He cut himself off, but the damage was done. "It was a bluff," Lucien said, too calm, still painting. "Just a bluff." Beatrice stared at his back, remembering Regina's calculating eyes, that predator smile. "You bluffed Regina Silverstone? The woman who has judges on speed dial? Who owns half the territory's businesses?" "Yes. I don't believe you." The brush stopped. Slowly, deliberately, he set it down. When he turned to face her, she gasped. He looked like he'd aged 5 years overnight. His eyes were red-rimmed, hollowed out, holding the kind of exhaustion that went beyond physical. He looked like a man who'd already accepted his own execution. "Then don't," he said simply. "But whatever you're thinking, whatever you're wondering, let it go. Please, Wildflower, for me, let it go." Before she could respond, the studio door crashed open hard enough to crack the frame. Mia stood there, eyes already flashing gold, alpha power radiating like heat waves. Jasmine was beside her, weapons visible, silver bullets, stakes, and things Beatrice didn't recognize. "We need to move you now." Mia's voice carried command that made even Beatrice's bones want to obey. "Troy's coming," Jasmine added, scanning the windows with professional paranoia, cataloging exits and defensive positions. "The entire Silverstone pack is mobilizing. We have maybe 30 minutes. How do you—" "Every wolf in a 50-mile radius can feel it," Mia interrupted. "Your mark is. Broadcasting. Like a beacon. It's calling to him, and he's answering." Beatrice pressed her hand to the mark, feeling it pulse with foreign excitement. Not her emotion, his. Troy's eagerness bleeding through the bond like poison. "I can feel him. Not just direction, his emotions. He's—" "What?" Lucien's voice was sharp. "Happy," she whispered, horrified. "He's happy, excited. Like a child on Christmas morning. He truly believes I'm his gift from the universe." "We get you to the vineyard," Jasmine said, already strategizing. "Defensive position. I've got enough firepower to—" "No." Beatrice's voice was quiet but firm. "No more people getting hurt because of me." "Beatrice." "I can feel what he's feeling," she said, the words tasting like ash. "The bond is getting stronger by the minute. Soon I won't just feel his emotions. I'll start sharing them. I'll want to go to him, the wolf inside me, the one being born against my will." She's curious about him. She thinks he smells like winter pine and power. Lucien made a sound like someone had gutted him. "I want to spend whatever time I have left as myself in the garden," she said, moving to the window. Her herbs grew there, lavender, sage, moonbell, planted with love last spring when the future had seemed so different. "Please, let me have this." They couldn't refuse her, not when she asked so little. Minutes later, they sat in a circle among the herbs, the dying sun painting everything in shades of gold and blood. Beatrice's hands moved automatically, muscle memory guiding her as she made her grandmother's calming tea. The familiar ritual should have soothed her. Instead, every sensation was too sharp. The lavender's scent overwhelming, the sage bitter as regret. "Remember the botanical garden incident?" Jasmine asked suddenly, forcing lightness into her voice. Mia actually laughed. "When Beatrice accidentally gave the roses consciousness?" "They were very effective vampire alarms," Beatrice defended, crushing herbs between fingers that trembled. "Screaming roses are terrifying." "The vampire literally cried," Jasmine added. "A 200-year-old vampire sobbing because the flowers wouldn't stop shrieking." "The roses were crying too," Beatrice reminded them. "They didn't ask to be sentient. I spent 3 days apologizing to each bush. And I painted portraits of them all," Lucienne said quietly, "to honor their sacrifice." 27 rose portraits, Mia remembered. "You hung them in the greenhouse, said they deserved to be remembered as heroes." For one perfect moment, sitting in dying light with her chosen family, drinking tea that tasted like better days, Beatrice could pretend. Pretend the mark wasn't burning. Pretend she wasn't losing herself. Pretend tomorrow would come and nothing would change. Then the bond exploded with sensation. She gasped, dropping her teacup. It shattered on the stones, tea spreading like blood. Through the mark, she felt Troy's proximity like electricity under her skin. He wasn't waiting for moonrise. He wasn't following protocol. He was coming now, pulled by the same desperate need that was trying to drag her toward him. "He's here," she whispered. They rose as one. A vampire hunter, an alpha, an artist, and a witch whose time was running out. The pets materialized from nowhere, forming a protective circle. Even Bashful stood visible, trembling but present. Troy Silverstone entered the garden like he was stepping onto a stage he owned. He was alone, arrogance or confidence, she couldn't tell. His perfect suit would cost more than her monthly mortgage, the fabric destined to be shredded in minutes. But it was his eyes that made her step back. Glacier blue, burning with an intensity that bordered on madness. The same desperate hunger she'd felt through the bond, made manifest. "Hello, mate," he said, and his voice carried such certainty it made reality bend around the words. "It's time to come home." "She's not going anywhere with you." Lucienne stepped forward, and Beatrice saw something in his movement, a readiness, a coiled violence she'd never seen before. Troy's gaze flicked to him with the same interest he'd give an insect. The failed artist, the charity case who bought his wolf from a traveling merchant, still playing protector, step aside before... Lucienne moved. Not like the gentle giant she knew, not like the man who let wombats bite him, rather than scare them. He moved like something undeadly, crossing the space between them in 2 strides that looked almost like dancing. His jacket hit the ground with a soft thud that seemed to echo. "I challenge you." His voice carried across the garden, formal words that couldn't be taken back. "Single combat for the right to court Beatrice Everlyn. Here, now." Troy's perfect face went slack with shock, then twisted with amusement. "You can't be serious." "Pack law recognizes the challenge," Mia stepped forward, her alpha authority making the words iron. "The challenge is valid, even across pack lines, even from a turned wolf to a born one." "He's not even real," Troy snarled, his composure cracking. "He's a fake, a construct, a human playing dress-up. I'm wolf enough." Lucienne was already shifting, bones breaking and reforming with sounds that made Beatrice flinch. Unless the great Troy Silverstone, heir to the White Wolf legacy, is afraid of a failed artist's charity case wolf? The insult landed like a slap. Troy's eyes went from blue to silver, his own shift rippling under his skin. "When I tear you apart, artist, she'll watch. She'll see how weak you really are. She'll understand why fate chose me instead of you. And when you're bleeding out in this garden, she'll thank me for freeing her from your mediocrity." "Stop!" Beatrice screamed, but her voice was lost in the symphony of transformation. Bones cracking, clothes tearing, human screams becoming wolf snarls. 2 wolves faced each other in her garden of dying herbs. Troy's wolf was everything the stories promised, pure white, pristine as fresh snow, moving with the grace of centuries of breeding. He was slightly smaller than Lucienne, but perfectly proportioned, muscles rippling under that impossible coat. His eyes remained that terrible blue, intelligent and cruel. Lucienne's wolf was darker, larger, rougher. His coat was deep brown shot through with gold, beautiful in its imperfection. He moved differently, Not with inherited grace, but with learned precision, like a street fighter who'd studied ballet. His storm-gray eyes held something Troy's didn't: purpose. They circled each other, lips pulled back from fangs that gleamed in the dying light. The sun was setting, the not-quite-full moon already visible, watching like a referee to a fight that could only end one way: in blood. The pets pressed against Beatrice, trembling. Mia and Jasmine stood ready to intervene, though pack law bound them to watching. And in the grass, forgotten in Lucien's discarded jacket, something glinted, dark as night, patient as death. The two wolves stopped circling, muscles bunched, eyes locked, and time seemed to pause, balanced on the edge of violence, waiting for someone to make the first move that would shatter everything. Chapter 8. The wolves tore into each other, with the violence of storms colliding. White and brown fur blurred together, fangs flashing, blood spraying across Beatrice's herb garden in arterial arcs. She screamed but couldn't look away, her newly enhanced senses tracking every terrible detail: the crack of Troy's ribs under Lucien's jaws, the wet sound of claws finding flesh, the copper stench of wolf blood mixing with crushed lavender. They broke apart, circling, both breathing hard. Troy's pristine white coat was streaked red, a deep gash running from shoulder to haunch. Lucien's left ear was torn, blood matting the fur along his neck. They were destroying each other with methodical precision. "Stop!" Beatrice shouted, but her voice was nothing against the primal fury before her. They clashed again, rolling through the sage bushes she'd planted with such hope. Troy's jaws found Lucien's shoulder, biting deep. Lucian roared, a sound that made every human step back, and twisted, his larger frame giving him leverage. His teeth sank into Troy's throat. Not a killing bite, not yet, but close enough that Troy went still, a whine escaping him. For a moment they stayed frozen, Lucien's jaws at Troy's throat, the white wolf pinned beneath the brown. The message was clear: I could kill you. I choose not to. Then Lucien released him and stepped back, already shifting to human form. The transformation was grotesque in reverse: bones breaking, reforming, fur receding to reveal skin painted with blood. Both men stood naked in the destroyed garden, equally wounded, breathing hard. Troy had 4 parallel claw marks down his chest, still bleeding freely. His perfect face was marred by a split lip, his left eye already swelling shut. But it was the bite mark on his throat that drew attention, deep punctures that had barely missed his jugular. Lucien wasn't much better. His shoulder was ravaged where Troy had bitten, the wound deep enough to show muscle. His torn ear continued to bleed, and his ribs on the left side were clearly broken, each breath coming shallow and pained. "Enough!" Beatrice rushed forward, but Mia caught her arm. "Pack law," Mia said grimly. "It's not over until one yields or dies." Lucien bent slowly, painfully, to retrieve his clothes from the grass. His jacket first, movements careful and deliberate despite the blood running down his torso. "You cheated!" Troy snarled, his voice rough from the throat wound. Blood bubbled on his lips as he spoke. "Fake wolves can't fight like that. You had help, magic, something." "I won," Lucien said simply, pulling on his pants with hands that shook slightly. "Yield." "Never." Troy took a step forward, then another, his naked form still radiating threat despite his wounds. "She's mine. The mark makes her mine. You can tear me apart and it won't change that." "Then I'll tear you apart," Lucien said quietly, reaching into his jacket. Troy laughed, the sound wet with blood. "With what? You can barely stand." Time slowed. Beatrice saw it all with her enhanced vision, Lucien's hand emerging from his jacket, something dark gleaming in his grip, a dagger that seemed to eat light, its blade so black it looked like a wound in reality itself. He stepped toward Troy with deadly purpose. "No!" The scream tore from her throat, but someone else was already moving. Regina materialized from nowhere, or perhaps she'd been there all along, hidden by whatever dark magic she possessed. She threw herself between them just as Lucienne struck, the blade meant for Troy's heart finding her chest instead. The dagger parted her expensive dress like water, sliding between her ribs with obscene ease. For a moment, no one moved, no one breathed. Then Regina looked down at the blade protruding from her chest, at the black veins already spreading from the wound like ink in water. "Oh," she said softly, almost conversationally. "That's not a normal knife." She collapsed. Troy caught her before she hit the ground, his rage evaporating into horror. "Regina, what did you— Why, because I love you, you magnificent idiot," she said, blood frothing on her lips. Black blood. Wrong blood. "Always have. Since we were children. Since before you started dreaming of white wolves." Lucienne stood frozen, the empty sheath in his hand, his face draining of all color. "I didn't mean—" She wasn't supposed to— "Yes, I was," Regina said, her voice getting weaker but somehow clearer. "The moment you pulled that blade, I was always going to take it. That's what love is, isn't it? Taking the blade meant for them?" She turned her fading eyes to Lucienne. "What did you pay for it? This isn't just vampire poison. This is older, hungrier. What did they make you promise?" "Don't tell me," she coughed, more black blood. The veins were spreading up her neck now, visible under her pale skin like a roadmap to death. "I'm dying anyway. Give me the truth. What price for a blade that can kill an alpha?" Lucienne's voice was hollow. 20 years, service to the vampire court, 20 years away from her. Regina actually smiled, though it was ghastly with blood. 20 years. You were going to kill Troy and lose her anyway. Oh, that's beautiful. That's poetry. She laughed, choking on it. We're the same, you and I. Willing to lose everything for love. Regina, hold on, Troy was saying desperately, pressing his hands to the wound though the blood seeped through his fingers. We can fix this. No, we can't. She touched his face with a trembling hand, leaving a bloody print on his cheek. But I can fix something else. She turned to Lucienne. Call them. Your vampire friends. Call them now. They're not my friends. Call them anyway. Lucien pulled out his phone with numb fingers, dialed a number that made Beatrice's skin crawl just from the tone sequence. He spoke 3 words in a language that sounded like breaking glass. The debt calls. The temperature dropped 20 degrees. They came from shadows that shouldn't exist in the dying light. 3 figures that moved wrong, looked wrong, were wrong on a fundamental level. Vampires. Ancient ones, by the way reality seemed to bend around them. The one in front was female, beautiful in the way winter was beautiful, deadly and perfect. Her eyes were the color of fresh blood. Lucien, she said, her voice like silk over broken glass. The Alpha still lives. The contract, I know, he said dully. Interesting. The vampire, Cassandra, Beatrice somehow knew, studied Regina dying in Troy's arms. The blade found blood, just not the intended blood. Regina raised her head with enormous effort. I want to make a trade. You have nothing we want, little witch. I have a soul, going to waste, and I know what you really want. Regina's eyes were going glassy, but her voice remained strong through pure will. You want the artist, but not forced. You want him willing, creating from joy, not obligation. Cassandra tilted her head, interested now. Go on. Take me instead. My soul, my service, my eternity. Free him from the contract. Regina, no, Troy whispered. Why would we want you, then? Cassandra asked, though something in her tone suggested she was already considering it. Because I'm a Silverstone. Because I know every pack secret, every weakness, every alliance. Regina coughed, more black blood. And because I'm already dying, you can turn me, make me, one of you. A vampire with inside knowledge of wolf politics, worth more than 20 years of reluctant art. The vampires exchanged looks that lasted milliseconds but contained entire conversations. Acceptable. Cassandra said finally. She looked at Lucienne. "The contract is void. You're free." "No." Beatrice found her voice. "Regina, why would you—" Regina's gaze found hers, and for a moment, the dying woman's eyes held triumph mixed with spite. "I do this for Troy, but all he ever wanted was you. So now he'll have his wish." Her smile was razor sharp. "And don't thank me. This isn't charity." The black veins reached her eyes. Her breath rattled once, twice, then stopped. Cassandra moved forward, faster than sight, and bit into Regina's throat before the last warmth could leave her body. The other vampires began chanting in that broken glass language. And that's when Beatrice felt it, the mark on her neck suddenly flaring with agony. She screamed, doubling over, her vision going white. Through the pain, she heard Regina's voice, impossible but real. The poison reversed itself. "My final gift. You're free too." The world exploded into silver light and burning cold. Beatrice felt something inside her tearing, breaking, dying. The wolf that had been growing, the bond that had been forming, all of it shattered like glass. When the light faded, when the pain receded, she found herself on her knees in the destroyed garden. The mark on her neck was gone. Not faded, not broken. Gone, like it had never existed. Troy stared at her in horror, his hand reaching toward his own neck where a matching emptiness echoed. "The bond. It's gone. Regina took it?" The vampires were leaving, carrying Regina's body. No, Regina's transforming form with them. As they reached the shadow's edge, Regina's eyes opened, now red as blood. "Enjoy your so-called freedom," she said, her voice different, darker, eternal. "All of you. You've earned it." Then they were gone, leaving behind only the scent of old roses and older regrets. Beatrice looked at Lucien, standing there covered in blood, the empty sheath still in his hand. He'd been willing to damn himself for 20 years. For her. "You were going to leave me," she said, not a question. "To save you," he replied, his voice broken. "By killing for me?" "By loving you enough to lose you." Troy stood slowly, his wounds still bleeding, his perfect face a masterpiece of loss. "I've lost Regina." His voice cracked. "I've lost the bond with you. The mark is gone. And you are." But Beatrice wasn't listening anymore. Her mind was spinning, fracturing, trying to process everything. The poison, the blade, the sacrifice, the freedom that tasted like ash. She was free. The mark was gone. The wolf inside her had died unborn. And somehow, that freedom felt like the heaviest chain of all. Then the world tilted. Beatrice's legs gave out, but it wasn't relief or exhaustion. Something was wrong. Very wrong. The burning in her throat wasn't fading, it was spreading, crawling through her veins like liquid fire. "No," she whispered, her vision starting to blur. This isn't freedom." "Beatrice." Lucienne stepped toward her, but she couldn't focus on his face anymore. Everything was fracturing, spinning, breaking apart like a shattered mirror. The pets erupted into chaos. "The tea!" Happy was barking frantically, running in circles. "The herbs! Something's wrong with the herbs!" "I smell it now!" Sneezy sneezed violently, again and again. Curse scent, dark magic, it was in the garden. Doc flew to the scattered herbs, pecking at them with desperate precision. "Moonbell shouldn't be black at the roots. The sage is rotting from inside." "She poisoned the garden!" Grumpy snarled, clawing at the earth. "Regina poisoned the whole bloody garden." "Mia, did you feel anything?" Jasmine's voice was sharp with alarm. "We drank the tea with Beatrice." "I feel fine." "Me too." They rushed toward Beatrice, but she stumbled backward, hands raised to ward them off. She was afraid, terrified, that she would do something horrific, something that would hurt those she loved. And the most terrifying thought of all, she knew she had very little humanity left in her. She could feel it draining away like water through her fingers. This wasn't just shifting into a wolf. This was feeling your soul being torn from its moorings, cast adrift into something vast and terrible and hungry. Why? Bashful's voice was tiny, terrified. Why did the poison only attack Beatrice? It's the curse, dark magic, precisely targeted, Selphie screeched, his magnificent feathers standing on end like needles. The curse was dormant until the mark broke, Sleepy said, both amber eyes wide open for once, staring at Beatrice in horror. The poison was keyed to activate when she became unmarked. Regina's final trap. She didn't want to hurt Troy. Just Beatrice. Always just Beatrice. Their voices were getting distant, echoing like they were speaking from the bottom of a well. Beatrice tried to speak, to ask what they meant, but her tongue felt thick, useless, already forgetting the shape of words. "She's dying," Happy howled, the sound pure anguish. "Our person is dying." "Not dying," Doc said grimly. And even through her fading consciousness, Beatrice heard his fear. "Changing. This isn't a killing poison. It's something else. Something worse." But what it was, Beatrice never heard. The silver light behind her eyes exploded into darkness, and she felt herself falling into a void that tasted of apples and bitter magic. The last thing she heard was Lucian screaming her name, raw and desperate. And then, nothing. Black. Silence. Except for a voice that might have been Regina's, or might have been her own, whispering with cruel satisfaction. "How does it feel, Beatrice? Being the beast? Being the very thing you feared most? Welcome to your true nature. The one I chose for you." Then even that faded, and Beatrice knew no more. Chapter 9. Lucien watched the woman he loved disappear. Not all at once. That would have been merciful. Instead, Beatrice's transformation was a slow unraveling, each second stealing another piece of her humanity. Her spine arched at an impossible angle, a sound like breaking kindling filling the destroyed garden. Her scream became something else halfway through, morphing into a howl that made his wolf cower. "Beatrice!" He reached for her, but Mia yanked him back. "Don't," the Alpha commanded. "Not until we know what she's becoming." The transformation was wrong. Lucien had seen wolves shift hundreds of times, had experienced it himself. This wasn't that. This was violent architecture, bones not just breaking but rebuilding into something that shouldn't exist. Beatrice's fingers elongated into claws before her hands had even finished changing. Her face stretched and reformed while her body was still human-shaped, creating a horrific moment where she was neither woman nor wolf, but something trapped between. When it finally ended, when the screaming and breaking stopped, what stood before them was magnificent and terrible. The wolf was pure white, but not like Troy's white. This was the white of winter storms, of avalanches, of things that killed beautifully. She was larger than any female wolf should be, nearly matching Lucien's size. Her form was graceful, each line speaking of deadly elegance, but there was something else, something in the way she moved that wasn't quite wolf. Too fluid, too predatory. But it was her eyes that made everyone step back. Silver. Not the warm brown of Beatrice's human eyes, but silver like moonlight on a blade. And in those eyes, nothing. No recognition. No humanity. No Beatrice. She growled, low and continuous, pacing back and forth like a caged predator. Her lips pulled back from fangs that seemed too long, too sharp, catching the dying light like ivory daggers. "Beatrice?" Lucien said softly, remembering his own first shift, the confusion, the terror, the overwhelming assault of new senses. But even then, he'd known who he was. He'd remembered love. The white wolf's head snapped toward him, and he saw nothing of the woman who'd kissed him an hour ago. "It's not her," Happy whimpered, pressing against Lucien's leg. The golden retriever was trembling. "That's not our person." "The eyes are wrong," Doc said, his usual calm cracked. "Completely wrong. She doesn't smell like Beatrice," Sneezy added between violent sneezes. "She smells like winter, like endings." It's not her, Grumpy agreed grimly, and Lucien's heart sank. The pets never agreed on anything, but they agreed on this. Whatever stood before them, it wasn't Beatrice. The white wolf's gaze swept over them all. Lucien, Troy, Mia, with her alpha authority radiating, Jasmine with her hand on a silver blade. She looked at each of them like a predator cataloging prey. Then she looked at her pets. The 7 animals who'd loved her, protected her, advised her, made her laugh. She looked at them, and her lips pulled back in a snarl that promised violence. "Beatrice, no," Bashful whispered, but she was already crouching, muscles bunching for attack. She whirled suddenly, focusing on Troy. Something in his scent, alpha, threat, the lingering trace of the mark, triggered her. She stalked toward him, each step deliberate, deadly. Troy scrambled backward. "She's feral," he said, voice high with panic. "Completely feral." "That's bullshit," Lucien snarled, though his own fear was climbing. "It's your blood bond, your venom that turned her. Stand still and let her recognize you." Troy froze, probably more from terror than obedience. The white wolf circled him, nostrils flaring. For a moment, Lucien thought, hoped, she might remember, might recognize the alpha who'd marked her. Then she attacked. One massive paw slammed into Troy's chest, sending him flying backward into what remained of the sage bushes. He hit hard, crying out, as his already wounded ribs cracked further. "She's crazy!" Troy gasped, trying to crawl away. "She's feral! She doesn't recognize anyone!" He tried to run. She caught him in 2 bounds, slamming him down with her front legs, pinning him like a mouse. Her jaws opened, and she roared. Not a wolf's howl, but something deeper, more ancient. The sound of winter storms given voice. "You're a beast," Troy whimpered, all his alpha arrogance gone. "A feral beast. I marked you. You can't kill your marker." "Pack law." She lowered her head, teeth inches from his throat. Troy went rigid, probably pissing himself, though Lucien couldn't blame him. Those silver eyes held death, simple and absolute. Then she sneezed. The sound was so unexpected, so utterly Beatrice, that everyone froze. The white wolf pulled back, shaking her head like she'd smelled something foul. She looked at Troy with what could only be described as disgust, then deliberately turned her back on him. "She rejected you," Mia said, wonder in her voice. "Completely rejected you." "The mark's gone and now she rejects you," Lucien added, unable to keep the satisfaction from his voice. "Go, now, before she changes her mind." Troy didn't need to be told twice. He scrambled up, clutching his rebroken ribs, and ran. Not the dignified retreat of an alpha, the desperate flight of prey. He didn't look back. The white wolf watched him go, then turned those terrible silver eyes on Lucien. He approached slowly, hands visible, movements careful. "Hey, Wildflower, it's me. It's Lucien." She tilted her head, and for a moment he thought he saw something, a flicker of recognition. Then she struck. Her paw hit his chest with enough force to crack bone. He flew backward, hitting the ground hard enough to drive all air from his lungs. Before he could recover, she was on him, those massive paws pinning his shoulders. "Beatrice!" Mia and Jasmine started forward. "Stay back!" Lucien shouted, never taking his eyes off the wolf above him. This close, he could see the confusion in those silver eyes, the terror. She was trapped in there, he realized. Beatrice was trapped inside the beast, watching herself do things she couldn't control. "You're strong, Beatrice," he said softly, ignoring the claws digging into his shoulders. "Remember who you are. You can control this. You can claim this form. You can shift." She lowered her head, jaws opening. He felt her breath on his throat, hot and predator rank. Her teeth pressed against his jugular, not quite breaking skin. In her eyes, he saw horror. She knew what she was about to do and couldn't stop it. "It's me, Beatrice," he said, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "It's Lucien. You're Lucien. The one who sang to your screaming flowers, who painted 27 portraits of roses, who's loved you since you were 8 years old." Her teeth pressed harder. A drop of blood welled. "Bite me," he said suddenly. "Draw blood if that helps you remember. I trust you." She did bite. Not deep, not fatal, but enough to break skin. The taste of his blood seemed to shock her. She jerked back, stumbling several steps away. A howl tore from her throat, not predatory, but anguished, lost. She looked ready to bolt, to disappear into the night and never return. "No." Lucien stood despite his injuries, blood running from the bite on his neck. "You don't get to run. Not from me." She charged him again, slashing with claws that opened lines across his chest. He didn't defend himself, didn't fight back, just kept talking. "Bite me, scratch me, do whatever you need," he said, catching her massive head between his hands when she lunged again. "I won't let you go. You are not feral. You are not lost. You are Beatrice Everlyn, and you are mine as I am yours." "Claim your identity, Beatrice," Jasmine shouted from behind him. "You're stronger than the beast." "Tame it," Mia added, her alpha command carrying power. "Make it yield. Take control. Show it who's in charge." The white wolf froze, those silver eyes flickering. For a moment they shifted, silver to brown to silver again. She was fighting, Lucien realized. Inside that magnificent, terrible form, Beatrice was fighting for control. "That's it," he whispered, pressing his forehead to hers despite the risk. "Fight, wildflower. Come back to me." She made a sound, half growl, half sob. Her form shuddered, rippled, like water disturbed by wind. The white fur began to shimmer, shift, revealing something impossible. She wasn't just wolf. As the fur receded in places, as her form began to stabilize between shapes, Lucien saw what Regina's curse had truly created. Not a wolf, not a human, but something between. White fur with lynx-like spots, a form too graceful for wolf, too powerful for cat. A creature that shouldn't exist but did, because Beatrice had claimed it. "I." Her voice, rough and broken but hers, emerged from the beast's throat. "I claim. Yes," Lucien breathed. "Say it." "I claim myself," she growled, and the words seemed to shatter something. "I am not yours, not Troy's, not Regina's curse. I am mine. I claim this form. I claim this power. I claim myself." The transformation back was just as violent as the change to beast, but this time Lucien caught her as she fell. She was naked, shaking, covered in blood, his and hers, but she was Beatrice, changed, marked by what she'd become, but Beatrice. She looked up at him with eyes that were brown but held flecks of silver now, permanent reminders of the beast within. "Lucien," she whispered, then stronger. "Lucien, my mate, my choice." Before he could respond, she bit him, not the savage bite of the beast, but the deliberate mark of a mate, claiming what was hers. He gasped at the pain and the rightness of it. "My turn," she said against his throat. "I claim you, Lucien Lee. As you are, as you were, as you will be. Mine." He bit her in return, completing the bond, and felt something click into place. Not the forced bond of Troy's mark, but something chosen, something earned. They kissed, bloody and battered, and absolutely certain, while around them their found family, human, wolf, and 7 magical pets, watched with various levels of disgust and delight. "Did she just," Mia started, "create an entirely new species of shifter?" Jasmine finished. "Yeah, I think she did." "I'm not a wolf," Beatrice said against Lucien's lips, wonder in her voice. "I'm not a lynx. I'm something new, something that's just mine." "A Beatrice!" Happy barked, tail wagging furiously. "You're a Beatrice!" She laughed. God, he'd thought he'd never hear that laugh again, and pulled back to look at her pets, her friends, her mate. "I'm free," she said, and for the first time, it was true. "I'm actually free." The full moon rose above them, bathing the destroyed garden in silver light. But this time, it didn't call to her. Nothing did, except her own will. She'd claimed herself. And that, Lucien thought as he held her close, was the most powerful magic of all. Epilogue. 6 months later. The Everlyn Academy for Exceptional Creatures had tripled in size, though Beatrice insisted on keeping the original barn where it all started. She stood in the doorway now, watching the organized chaos of a typical Tuesday morning. 3 young witches practicing levitation on increasingly annoyed rabbits, a teenage werewolf learning to paint with Lucienne, and her 7 pets holding what appeared to be a very serious board meeting about the cafeteria menu. "Absolutely not," Grumpy was saying, banging his paw on the tiny conference table Lucienne had built for them. "We are not serving caviar to the peacocks." "But it would elevate the dining experience," Selfie protested, his tail feathers spread in indignation. "We're a school, not a 5-star restaurant," Doc said dryly from his perch above the table. The budget is fine," Beatrice interrupted, walking over to kiss the top of Doc's feathered head. "But Grumpy's right. No caviar." She paused, noticing a new student, a shy girl with a small iguana on her shoulder. "Oh, Sarah, how's Mr. Scales settling in? I was thinking maybe I could try the speaking potion on him. See if—" "No!" All 7 pets shouted in unison with such force that papers flew off nearby desks. "Absolutely not." Happy's usual cheerfulness vanished, replaced by something almost feral. "We had a deal. You promised." Sneezy sneezed so violently he knocked himself backward. "We're the only ones, the exclusive 7. We earned this through years of service." Doc's wings flapped agitatedly. "Years of loyal, dedicated—" "We were here first." Bashful actually came out from under the table to shout, then immediately hid again. "This is non-negotiable," Grumpy growled, and for once everyone agreed with his grumpiness. "Do you want us to form a union?" Selfie threatened, his tail feathers bristling. "Because we'll form a union. Local 007, Original Talking Pets Union. We'll strike. No more advice. No more companionship. No more—" "We'll tell everyone about the noodle incident of last Tuesday," Sleepy said with both eyes open, which meant he was serious. "You wouldn't dare," Beatrice gasped. "Try us," all 7 said together, forming what could only be described as a tiny, furry, feathered wall of rebellion. Okay, Beatrice held up her hands in surrender. "No more talking animals. You 7 have exclusivity, forever." "In writing," Doc demanded. "Notarized," Grumpy added. "With witnesses," Selfie contributed. "I'll draw up the contract." Beatrice sighed, then smiled at Sarah. "Mr. Scales will have to remain the strong, silent type." The iguana seemed relieved. "Our person has spoken wisely," Happy declared, tail wagging again now that the crisis was averted. "How are you feeling? Is the baby—" "The baby is fine," Beatrice laughed, her hand moving to the subtle swell of her stomach. 4 months along, and the entire academy, students, staff, and especially the pets, had become collectively overprotective. "Babies," Sneezy corrected with a violent sneeze. "Plural. I can smell 2 distinct scents." Beatrice froze. "What?" "Oh," Bashful whispered from under the table. "Was that supposed to be a surprise?" "Twins!" Lucienne's voice carried from across the barn where he'd been teaching. His paintbrush clattered to the floor as he vaulted over 3 desks to reach her. "We're having twins?" "According to Sneezy's nose," Beatrice said, still stunned. Lucienne swept her into his arms, spinning her carefully before setting her down to kiss her thoroughly. 6 months since she'd claimed him, and every kiss still felt like the first, chosen, earned theirs. "Gross," Grumpy muttered, but his eyes were suspiciously wet. "It's romantic," Happy sighed. "It's statistical probability," Doc added, though he was preening his feathers in that way he did when emotional. "Shifter twins are increasingly common. You know what we need?" Happy announced, bouncing with excitement. "A portrait, a family portrait with everyone." "That's actually brilliant," Selfie agreed, already posing. "I'll paint it," Lucienne said, his artist's eye already framing the scene. "All of us. The whole ridiculous, impossible family." "When's the last time you painted an actual portrait?" Mia asked, walking in with Jasmine, both carrying enormous wrapped presents. Wasn't it all abstract digital installations for the last 3 years? Portraits are like riding a bicycle, Lucien said confidently, setting up his easel. You never forget. 2 hours later, they all stood staring at the finished painting in horrified fascination. Why? Grumpy said slowly. Do I have 3 eyes? And why is my tail coming out of my head? Happy whimpered. I appear to be melting, Doc observed clinically. My feathers are dripping. Is that supposed to be me or a feather duster that gained sentience? Selfie demanded, thoroughly offended. I'm just a red blob, Bashful said, though he seemed somewhat relieved to be unrecognizable. I look like I'm sneezing out my entire skeleton, Sneezy said between actual sneezes. At least you all have bodies, Sleepy muttered. I'm just floating eyes in the void. It's abstract, Lucien defended, though his ears were red. It captures your essence. It captures something, Jasmine said, tilting her head. Is Beatrice supposed to have tentacles? Those are arms, Lucien protested. All 8 of them? Mia asked innocently. It's expressionistic. It represents her many roles, teacher, friend, mother-to-be. Octopus, apparently, Beatrice added, trying not to laugh. Honey, I love you, but this is terrible. It's not terrible, it's... Lucien looked at the painting again and deflated. Okay, it's terrible. I may have forgotten how to paint anything that isn't abstract. You turned us into Picasso's nightmares, Selfie wailed. My beautiful tail feathers look like a tornado made of pasta. I'll practice, Lucien promised. I'll take a class. You'll let Beatrice's student Marcus paint the family portrait, Mia suggested. The kid's actually good. But I wanted to paint us as recognizable life forms, Grumpy asked, because that ship has sailed, crashed, and sunk to the bottom of abstract ocean. We could hang it in the hall as a warning, Doc suggested, and title it, This is Your Brain on Too Much Digital Art. Or Family Portrait by Someone Who Forgot What Faces Look Like, Sneezy added. Pets in a Blender, Bashful whispered. The octopus wife and her 3-eyed badger, Happy contributed, then immediately added, but painted with love. They were all laughing now, even Lucien, who was looking at his painting with growing horror. Did I really paint Beatrice with tentacles? 8 of them, everyone confirmed. I'm burning this, he decided. Don't you dare. Beatrice snatched the canvas. This is going in our bedroom. What, why? Because you painted it for us. Because it's horrible and hilarious and ours. She kissed him, tasting paint and embarrassment and love. Because 20 years from now, we'll look at it and remember the day you forgot what humans look like, but tried anyway. I hate it, Selfie announced, but I also want a copy for my room. Me too, the other pets chimed in. The 3-eyed badger is growing on me, Grumpy admitted. Just then the door burst open. Troy Silverstone stood there looking haggard but holding a white rose and an envelope. Beatrice's blood chilled. She hadn't seen a white rose since... It's from Regina. Troy's voice came from behind them. Everyone spun. Lucien already shifting partially, claws extending. But Troy held up his hands in surrender. He looked different, thinner, shadows under his eyes, his arctic arrogance melted into something almost human. Peace, he said quietly. I'm just the messenger. Regina's dead, Jasmine said flatly, her hand on her weapon. Regina's a vampire, Troy corrected, and she wanted you to have this. He held out an envelope to Beatrice, careful not to come closer. Her lawyers delivered it this morning with instructions to bring it here personally. Beatrice took it with trembling fingers, feeling Lucien's protective presence at her back. Inside was a single sheet of expensive stationery and a legal document. Beatrice, by the time you read this, I'll be somewhere in Europe, learning to be what I've become. The vampire courts are interesting. Cold, but I was always good with cold. I wanted you to know that the poisoned garden was my last act as a desperate, jealous woman. What you became, that magnificent creature between wolf and lynx, that was an accident. My curse was meant to make you fully feral, unreachable. Instead, you created something new, something unique. something that could only exist because you were strong enough to claim it. I hated you for that at first. Then I realized you gave me what I wanted too. Freedom from my obsession. Troy will never be mine, but now I have centuries to become something more than a woman defined by unrequited love. The attached document transfers my shares in the Silverstone Foundation to your academy. Consider it payment for the lesson you taught me. Sometimes the best thing that can happen is not getting what you think you want. Don't look for me. Don't thank me. Live your messy, beautiful, mortal life with your artist and your pets and your twins. Yes, I know about the twins. Vampire senses are remarkably acute. Be happy, Beatrice. It's the best revenge. RSPS. Troy is a broken man. Perhaps that's punishment enough. Perhaps not. I leave that to your judgment. The legal document showed a transfer of shares worth enough to fund the academy for the next century. She gave us everything, Beatrice whispered. She gave us freedom, Troy corrected quietly. All of us. He looked at Beatrice, and for the first time she saw him clearly. Not the arrogant alpha who'd marked her, but a man who'd lost everything chasing an illusion. I'm leaving Wolf Valley, the pack. They don't want an alpha who failed so spectacularly. But I wanted to say, I'm sorry, for all of it. I know, Beatrice said, and found she meant it. Troy nodded once, then turned to go. At the door, he paused. The wolf you became, it really was magnificent, just not mine. It was never supposed to be mine. Then he was gone, leaving only the ghost of what might have been. Well, Grumpy said after a long moment, that was awkward. But necessary, Doc added. Like a really uncomfortable sneeze, Sneezy contributed, then promptly demonstrated. The tension broke, everyone laughing. Lucien pulled Beatrice close, his hand resting protectively over where their twins grew. Hey, Beatrice? Happy said suddenly, tail wagging with barely contained excitement. Yeah? We did good, didn't we? All of us? We did good? Beatrice looked around at her chaotic, beautiful, chosen family. A reformed vampire hunter, an alpha psychologist, an artist with lightning in his blood, 7 magical pets who drove her crazy daily, and 2 or 3 babies on the way. Yeah, she said, tears pricking her eyes. We did good. Group hug, Happy barked, and before anyone could protest, they were all tangled together. Human and shifter and pets, laughing and crying and stepping on each other's feet. Lucien would paint many portraits over the years, but this one, messy and imperfect and absolutely true, would always be Beatrice's favorite. It hung in the Academy's main hall with a simple plaque. Family. Nan. The people who choose you back. And every full moon, when Beatrice shifted into her unique form, that beautiful creature between wolf and lynx that belonged to no one but herself, she remembered the night she'd claimed her identity, the night she'd chosen love over fear, the night she'd discovered that sometimes the greatest happily ever after isn't in being saved. It's in saving yourself first, then choosing who to save next. Beatrice smiled, one hand on her growing belly, the other reaching for his paint-stained fingers. Behind them, 7 pets began another argument about dinner arrangements. Ahead of them, a lifetime of controlled chaos and chosen family awaited. It was perfect. It was theirs. It was just the beginning, the end, or perhaps, as Sleepy might say, with one eye mysteriously open, just another beginning. And that's where our story ends, or perhaps, as Sleepy would say, with one eye mysteriously open, where it begins. If Beatrice's journey touched your heart, if you laughed at the pet's chaos, swooned over Lucien's sacrifice, or cheered when she claimed herself in that garden, please hit the like button and share this story with someone who needs to hear that they're enough, exactly as they are. Subscribe and ring that notification bell to join our pack. Next week, we're diving into another dark fairy tale reimagining, exclusively written for you, our incredible listeners. Did a moment in this story make you gasp? Do you have a burning question about what happens next? drop a comment below. I read every single one, and your thoughts inspire the next story I write. Remember, you dream it, I write it. Your wildest fairy tale reimagining could be our next adventure. The request link is in the description below. Thank you for choosing to spend these hours with Beatrice, Lucienne, and 7 pets who definitely deserve their own union. Thank you for being part of our story universe where love is messy, family is chosen, and every ending is really just another beginning. This has been Marked by Snow, written by D.N. Leo, narrated by Jessica Lee. Until next time, remember, sometimes the greatest magic isn't in being saved. It's in discovering you had the power to save yourself all along. Stay in love and stay magical.